It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. We've got a great panel all in studio. Lisa Schmeiser is here. So is Alex Lindsey. So is Ian Thompson. Ian's really upset about the sale of the .org domain. We'll talk about that. Alex will explain why HDR is more important than 4K. And Amazon's Echo is very, very disappointed. It's all coming up next on Twit.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 747. Recorded Sunday, December 1st, 2019. Every click is a vote. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Eero. Ever think about Wi-Fi again when you can have brilliant, hyper-fast, super simple Wi-Fi with Eero? Go to Eero.com/twit and enter the code TWIT at checkout to get free overnight shipping with your order. And by Casper, a sleep brand that continues to revolutionize its line of products, introducing the new Casper hybrid mattresses, featuring their award-winning foam layers now combined with springs. Get $100 off select mattresses by visiting Casper.com/twit1 and using the promo code TWIT1 at checkout. And by LastPass, a personal password manager and identity solution for businesses all in one. You only need one master password, and LastPass remembers the rest. Visit LastPass.com/twit to learn more. And by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. Thinking about moving your data storage to the cloud? Wasabi is enterprise-class cloud storage at 1/5 the price of Amazon S3 and up to 6 times faster with no hidden fees for egress or API requests. Calculate your savings and try Wasabi with free unlimited storage for a month at wasabi.com. Code TWIT. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the week's tech news. I can't believe we have a full in-house panel today, despite the atmospheric river dumping outside. Ian Thompson elected to come all the way up from San Francisco. Thank you, Ian.
Not a problem at all.
I appreciate it.
I say your freeway drivers display all the tact and subtlety of a small nuclear weapon when it comes to going up the road.
Out of my way, Brit. Ian writes for the register.co.uk, as if you couldn't tell. Actually, he doesn't write for him anymore. He edits.
Oh, no, I do still do some.
Oh, good.
Yep.
I hope you do, because your writing is fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Also with us, she came from the East Bay today, Lisa Schmeiser, editor at IT Pro Today. Hello, Lisa.
Hi. I'm glad to be here.
How was the drive?
I left very early on the off chance that other people would have
And you
car
got here
accidents.
very early.
I did. Well, it was nice. I got to sit for an hour and catch up on the week's news and tech because I haven't been paying attention for the last week.
I am blown away. This is 2 weeks in a row we've had a panelist who prepared.
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know what to think of it.
Your audience deserves it.
And also here, Alex Lindsey, who came off from far, far away.
All the way from Nevada. Not
Just
Nevada.
down the road a piece.
Nevada.
Nevada. That would be
Nevada.
funny if we called it Nevada.
Nevada.
We should start a trend, because Nevadans will say, when you say Nevada, they say, no, it's
Nevada.
Nevada. We should Novato, which is a small town to the south of us.
Right.
We should start that trend. Say, no, it's Nevada. See how long it takes to propagate. No, it's Nevada. What are you talking? You mustn't be from around here. It's Nevada.
It's just north of San Rafael.
Now, remember, Dr. Don used to say San Rafael. So you could call it San Raquel. Anyway, yes, you survived the atmospheric river. Last week it was the bomb cyclone.
Oh, I know.
Is this unusual? Is this a Californian thing? In the UK, do they have cute meteorological names?
No, we just accept that it rains for about 3 months of the year. I mean, it's just like, it's always got to be, well, okay, actually, for considerably longer, but if you're talking continuous spread, then November to February can be quite unpleasant. But
There's no special name for it, though. It's winter.
Well, I mean, we have lots of names for rain. There's pounding rain, there's drizzle, there's mizzle, there's, all kinds of different...
We've had that for years.
It's like Eskimos and snow. We can describe a lot of different forms of rain, but here it's got to be something, if it
dramatic.
bleeds, it leads. It's got to be a bomb cyclone or,
My theory, and I'll stand corrected if I'm wrong, is that all started when there was a 24-hour cable channel devoted to weather. They just realized it can't say rain. You got to have some.
Well, they have more time to talk about it.
Exactly.
They don't have like the 2 or 3 minutes. They have time, and they're like, let's think of something better. And you're trying to get headlines. You're trying to get viewers.
And with Billy Connolly on this, so why do we need weather forecasters at all? Just look out the window.
Well,
you know.
So NOAA actually, I think, coined the term atmospheric river.
The NOAA?
The national.
Oh, right. Okay, right.
Actually, it would be appropriate.
I don't recall that passage in
40
Genesis.
days and 40 nights. I call that an atmospheric river.
We should make a boat because I think there's going to be an atmospheric.
You're going to want to stock up on those animals.
Yeah. Tell the
NOAA.
slugs early. They're going to have a long trip to get here.
This is, I think, setting a record for the earliest the show title has been pronounced. We haven't even done any news. No, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Atmospheric rivers are relatively long, narrow regions in the atmosphere, like rivers in the sky, that transport most of the water vapor out of the tropics and dump them on Petaluma. Actually, the picture is of Bodega Bay, which is just over the road,
Right.
over the hill.
Well,
So-
I mean, my wife was driving, was it Thursday when this hit? And just like up in Presidio, the roads were just completely flooded. Because they got, you've got a summer's worth of leaves that have just dropped off the trees.
Oh, it's a mess.
The
By the
drains
way,
were blocked up.
atmospheric rivers, there are different kinds. One of them, I think the one we're getting, is the Pineapple Express.
Yes, it's much warmer than it was on. Because on Thursday it barely cracked 50, and then yesterday when it began dumping in the East Bay, I was like, it's warm now.
Are you
It's not
auditioning
warm.
for the Weather Channel, Lisa Schmeiser?
And on Friday, a warm front came through.
I just want to say I don't remember any of this from school.
And I,
Oh, it
no,
did.
I think they made this all up recently.
But on Wednesday it was
I remember high
hilarious.
pressure, low pressure.
No, I went out for dinner on Wednesday, to a friend's place for dinner on Wednesday, and it went below single-digit centigrade. So what's that in freedom units? It's about 5. It's about 50. And Californians are just like, oh no, this is terrible. I can't deal with it. It's also put another layer on and just get on with it. Have a cup of tea.
What's
if
a
it's
layer?
It got below freezing in the East Bay.
It's been
this
pretty
week.
cold.
It was in the 40s where we were.
Yeah,
There's one other
same
theory.
here.
It might not be the
was
Weather
snow.
Channel.
Freedom digits.
It might be the advent of crazy weathermen. Remember there was a guy in San Francisco, Lloyd Lindsey Young, he would use all sorts of strange implements to point, like a toilet plunger and all sorts of weird stuff to point.
I'm so glad you said toilet plunger there, because this is San Francisco we're talking about.
Could be all sorts of things. Yeah, no, he never went that crazy. I wonder if he coined it. Maybe he did. Anyway, that's not what we're here to discuss. I just thought I'd start with something light, relaxing, and calming, because Ian is going to blow his stack when we talk about the sale of .org. I don't think this got
Okay, you
widely
might be
reported, but I think this is a very, very big deal.
We've covered it all week because they sneaked the announcement in late on Friday.
And you had a great
last
interview with Andrew
that
Sullivan.
Well, okay. I'm sure he's a very skilled person in his own way, but it just...
So I think, first of all, what people probably don't know is how this works. But there's something called ISOC.
Yes, the Internet Society.
The Internet Society is the owner of domain names?
They've been running... Well, they run a certain number of domain names, but because ICANN has been increasing the number of domain names out there, then they've got some of the key ones. So ISOC since 2003 has been running .org. It's been taken up by a lot of nonprofits.
Nominally, I always thought .org was restricted to nonprofits.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that
it's
if you
never
saw .org, you could say with some certainty, oh, this is a nonprofit.
Now you see, this is what 99% of the rest of us assumed as well. But once this story broke, the Internet Society has been, actually, no, if you look at the paperwork, we never said it was explicitly for non-profits.
No, in fact, I know people who have .org domain names, and they're definitely not profit.
Oh, sure.
Not
When
nonprofit.
we buy them,
Did you have one? Yeah.
When we buy
Schmeiser.org?
I also had that in Schmeiser.com for a while.
I think for a
worked on both
family
of
name,
those.
.org is actually a good family.
Yeah.
And we would routinely, when we get URLs, would routinely get
All of
.com, .net, .org. Right?
Yeah.
You just get those
You
three. In fact,
cover the
a lot of
bases.
times we wouldn't register them unless we could see all three of them, so that we knew that we had that group.
Nobody would kind of steal it by saying
no.
pixelcore.org, and you'd think, oh, maybe that.
But all the different websites we put up we always made sure we were able to get that.
So
set.
.org was never really limited to
No.
nonprofits.
Well, no,
Now,
but it was a-
just for clarity, .gov, you can't get .gov. without being government, right?
Or
You can't-
mill
can-
or edu.
Mill, EDU, is that also
I-
pretty
I-
well
I
protected?
believe they're-
Mill and
both are-
EDU are both covered. Yeah.
But .org, so that was mostly just conventional wisdom that it was nonprofits. It wasn't.
Well, also because the pricing structure was set up in a way which appealed to nonprofits, in that you had fixed term price caps. You couldn't raise the domain cost more than 10% a year, and that was built in right from the very start. So it appealed an awful lot to nonprofits. But also you got that .org, which is a nice international, organizational kind of approach. So then about 6 weeks ago, the Internet Society said, you know what? Maybe we should get rid of the price caps on this. You know, what do you guys think about this? And ask the users. 98% said no, and then they thought, well, we've thought about it. Yeah, we're going to take away price caps.
By the way, you know what the consequence of something like that is if you look at some of the prices of some of the weird domains. They can be thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Even .tv is an expensive domain name.
Tuvalu take their pound of flesh.
So there is no set price for a domain. Different TLDs, top-level domains, can have different prices.
Yeah,
Okay.
certainly. But
And that price is set by the not by the registrar, but by
the domain,
ICANN, or
by
is
the
it
domain
by the
name host.
It is by the domain name host.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So
it could vary. You could shop around.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But if you've actually built, an enormous amount of brand into like amnesty.org or EFF.org or something like that, I mean, it's okay if you're in the West, but if you're a lot of African, a lot of Asian charities have got into this, if you jack their prices up 10%, that's going to seriously cut into their margins.
Right. And it may not be just 10%.
No,
The sky's the limit.
Yeah, the sky is now the limit, and they announced.
Does ISOC, is it a for-profit organization, the Internet Society?
I don't think it's technically for. I mean, they are allowed to make a profit, and they are supposed to give a certain amount to charity.
But they do make money.
Yeah, and they've been increasing salaries quite readily. But
They
now apparently
got it from VeriSign in 2003.
Yeah.
According to your article in the
And now
Register.
apparently they are selling the .org domain for $1 billion.
That's kind of a coincidence.
to
They
a pri-
raise the price caps
Yeah,
and then a few weeks later sell it.
sell
Like
it.
maybe
to,
this was the plan.
As they report in your publication, they say if we had consulted publicly about this sale, the opportunity would have been lost. So,
which is a nice way of saying.
I wish the FCC would be that forthright. You know, if
So-
we asked you guys, we know you say no, so we just did it.
So
Yeah.
it sounds like
Well, you've got this private
How would it have been
equity
lost?
firm which didn't exist until a few months ago. It's backed by 3 billionaire-owned private equity firms, including by Mitt Romney's firm, and they're
Bain Capital.
yeah, and now they're looking to buy it for $1 billion. And guess what they're going to do with it? They'll jack up the prices, pay themselves large management fees, and then run it for a profit. And no one seems to be talking about this. I mean, Tim
well-
Berners-Lee was on stage the day before we did a piece on this. It was the number one question at the Internet Governance Forum to put forward to Tim Berners-Lee to answer, and they ducked the question entirely. I mean, he put out a tweet a day later saying, actually, I stand with .org, but you were at the Internet Governance Forum. It might have been a chance there to say this is a really dumb idea. It just stinks to high heaven. I mean, one of the members of ICANN, I think it's the COO, is the leading member of this private equity firm. They've got links to a former ICANN CEO as well. It just stinks of a stitch-up.
Sullivan, who did talk about it to the Register.
Kind of, yeah.
Well, but he wasn't really very. I thought he did a terrible job of representing himself. And
Oh, no, I mean, this guy... I think the only person who read that interview and thought that was really good was Prince Andrew. You know?
it didn't rise to the Prince Andrew level, but it was close. So, for instance, was it Kieran who interviewed him?
Yeah, Kieran's an expert on this.
Kieran McCarthy. So he asks, what about the people? There are 10 million registrants. What about the people who bought .org because it felt nonprofit-y?
Exactly.
He said, well, Sullivan, there's 3 million who registered their names prior to the transfer from VeriSign in 2003. The remaining 7 million, only
70%.
70%, only a small portion would have taken that into consideration. Most people just look for a domain name and get it through a company that's commercial.
Really. And yet they're not actually releasing figures on how much of their percent, it's just...
He even said a good number of .org registrants are domain name speculators. So it's okay to take them for a ride.
Right. And if you're a charity working in sub-Saharan Africa to try and get clean water for your people, then just suck it up. There's domain name squatters to punish.
So, $1 billion?
It's rumored. The actual figures haven't been released, but yeah, they're.
Well, if they talked about it, the opportunity might not have been there.
Exactly. And it's like, who wouldn't want I mean, this is what I don't get about why people aren't getting more outraged. It's a domain name system. It's not as though you've got to develop new products or, it's an admin, a legal, and some server time. And it's a very low margin industry. The only possible reason for removing price caps and selling it off is to jack up the prices and make everyone else pay for it.
And make $1 billion.
Yeah. This is the way vulture capitalism works. It's just...
but it's sad that the Internet Society, which one thinks of as
you'd think.
Public benefit corporation.
Absolutely. I mean, they had a good reputation. And then it's just gone like so much money under the bridge. Sorry, water under the
Sullivan
bridge.
said nothing short of a court order will stop this.
Yeah.
In other words,
they've made up their minds.
This is his way of saying make us.
Yeah. I mean, I can
can
technically stop it, but there seems to be very little enthusiasm there.
Who runs ICANN these days? See, I go back to the days when it was a guy at USC, John Postel, who just did the whole thing out of his office. And ICANN, eventually the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, became a little bit more professional.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically professional. If you look at some of the amounts of money they've spent, the way they sleptwalked into GDPR with the WHOIS system, whereby they just said, well, WHOIS is really important. We don't want to change the system. GDPR's come in. We'll negotiate, an exit from this so we're not counted. They took it to court 4 times. Each time the court said to them, no, you do have to obey European law if you're operating in Europe.
The problem with WHOIS being it publishes the registrant's name and address and phone number publicly.
Exactly.
And that's why many of us pay extra. Actually, with Hover, I don't have to pay extra, although I imagine it's built into the price. Pay extra for WHOIS privacy that uses an intermediary to hide our address.
And the only people that really like WHOIS are digital rights lawyers, because it massively reduces their costs. Well, yes, okay. I was thinking legitimate businesses, but yes, it's.
So ICANN. So for a while, the U.S. Commerce Department kind of oversaw this, but they gave it up a few years ago.
And then yes, it was like this is better done as a private organization.
Is it non-governmental or is
technically yes? Although the U.S. has a fair amount of influence in it.
So with the .org, though, I mean, so currently you can still get I'm on Hover. You can get a .org for $12.
There's just no guarantee they won't raise the price. There's no longer a cap on it.
But what do we think what do we actually think would happen? And I'm just curious, how far 10% is going to be a couple dollars. Would they double it, triple it? Do they? Or I mean,
well, this is a year, so I mean, it's. If you're a Western nonprofit, it's not going to be a massive issue because it'll just be a steadily increasing cost. But because it's appealed to nonprofits so much around the world, as I say, if you're in sub-Saharan Africa or lower Southeast Asia, that constant jacking up of costs, you've got to make a choice. Do we make the switch now to another domain, which might also face the same problem? Do we just suck it up? It just seems needlessly wasteful. It's like, a couple of private equity firms could make a profit out of this, but it doesn't really give anything to the greater good. And considering the number of non-profits involved in this, it's kind of like, maybe we could just let this one pass and you can make your money in other ways.
Right.
It also just feels like making money off something like this is, it's just inappropriate somehow.
Ripping off charities, I can't help feeling
even if it weren't
ethically dodgy.
Yeah, I don't. The last thing you want to see is a gold rush on internet domain names. I mean, that's already started.
In the 90s.
Yeah, it's not good.
And it benefited no one back then.
And
a few people who registered.
As you pointed out, it's basically a lot of people making a lot of great whoopsie loads of money off of what is arguably a very limited resource that doesn't require a whole lot of maintenance or particular skill to operate.
Oh, yeah, and it invites fraud. I mean, Kieran, who wrote the stories, he wrote a book in the early 2000s called Sex.com.
Oh, that was a great story.
Hijacking, yeah. And this domain was making $20 million a month.
A month?
Yeah. And they just forged a signature, sent it to VeriSign, and we'll reassign the domain to you. And 4 years of legal arguments. The guy was on the run for 2 of them. I mean, this doesn't benefit the internet in any way, shape, or form. Domain names should be a simple, cheap. I mean, it's not to say there are massive costs involved, so make it simple, cheap, and reliable, and then we can get on with free market competition online.
Yeah. There's plenty of places to make money on the internet. We don't have to make money at the infrastructure level. That's probably not a great idea. All right. Well, I thought we'd start with something that would get Ian steamed up.
Hey, I didn't swear. I was
You were
very careful.
Good. I'm waiting for an Ianism of some kind, but nothing. No bollocks.
Well, I could go with cockwomble to describe the guy.
All right, now we
have children in the room.
Oh, we do. We have Alex's kids. Oh, aren't you guys cute? Great to see you. Our show today brought to you by. Do you use an Eero at home? I would if I were you, with your lovely children.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'd like to.
We do.
I invested before they before they came out.
So Eero is mesh Wi-Fi. It's Wi-Fi done right, and we use it because one of the reasons I love it is I can say to my Amazon Echo, "Pause Michael's internet." It's a great parlor trick because I go, okay, everybody quiet, listen, and I say, "Pause Michael's internet." You wait a beat, and then, it's great. It's wonderful. It's really fun. It's a mean game to play. No, but I have total control over the internet. Incidentally, he can't go then Echo unpause internet. No, it doesn't work that way. He has to go.
You do realize she's picking your retirement home, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I tell you what, these days Wi-Fi, it's changed so much since it first came out. And in fact, I think everybody's noticed Wi-Fi's gotten worse, right? And it's not really Wi-Fi's fault. It's just that we're doing Netflix. You got the kids in the bedroom watching YouTube. You're watching Netflix. Mom is streaming something else. You've got dead spots. You've got and it's just complicated. What you want is fast, reliable Wi-Fi that automatically shapes itself to your usage, doesn't buffer Netflix, gives people the email they want when they want it without slowing anything else down. And it's Eero, E-E-R-O. It sets up in minutes, plugs right into your cable modem or your DSL modem. You can manage it through the Eero app, which I'm a big fan of. In fact, I manage my mom's Wi-Fi too, because when I got the new Eeros, the version 2, which I use at home, I sent the old ones. My mom set them up for her. So if she has trouble with her internet, I can literally go onto the app and see what's going on, see which of actually the other day, one of her units was down. I called her up. She said, yeah, I unplugged it. I said, well, plug it back in. You can check usage. You could check your bandwidth. You can pause the Wi-Fi for any reason, whether it's dinner or bedtime or just because you want to mess with the kids. One of the things I really love about it, I get an alert when a new device joins the network. Mm-hmm. So when people come over, I can see that they've joined the network. And if nobody has come over and we're just sitting there and says something's joined the network, that's a cause for concern. That's where you can investigate, and you can do it all in the Eero app. It's great for guests too. I have guest Wi-Fi, and you can share it with them without compromising your own network. And it expands to fit your needs. If you're having a dead spot, you just go out and get another beacon, plug it into the wall, and suddenly you can stream, work, and play everywhere in every corner of your home. Look, you don't want to be spending time thinking about Wi-Fi. What you really don't want to hear is Dad, the Wi-Fi's down. You don't have to think about it again. Get Eero. You can get it fixed right away. Like you can have it tomorrow if you go to Eero, EERO.com/twit, and use the code TWIT at checkout. You'll get free overnight shipping with your order. Don't delay. Go to Eero today. Eero.com/twit. Use the offer code TWIT to get that free overnight shipping. You're getting the Wi-Fi every home deserves. You're getting Eero. I think they were the first kind of consumer mesh, and they've really lived up to their promise. I have to say they've done such a fantastic job.
And you can get rid of that Comcast modem that you have.
They'll still make you pay for it, though.
No, you send it back.
No,
really?
That's what I did. I bought my own modem. Yep. Went to the wire cutter. They recommended, I think, a Netgear. I bought that. They also recommend Eero, and you set that up, and you're not paying any rent to Comcast anymore. You're not at their mercy anymore. This was the strangest story. I saw this today. I don't know what you think of this one, Alex. Jony Ive removed from Apple's leadership page. Didn't he leave ages ago? Why was he still on the leadership page?
I think it's been a gradual
slow exit,
a gradual exit where he may not have been that involved for a while, and then they already announced, I think, a couple months ago that he was going to be a consultant for Apple, but not be part of the team. And then they just took a little bit more time to finally
slowly phase him out.
Yeah, look for a slow week and have it just.
Is it unfair to blame Jony for the butterfly keyboard? Is it pure coincidence that Apple released a decent keyboard the minute he was gone?
Well,
and by the way, a thicker iPhone with better battery life.
Do you have anything that suggests this is anything more than a simple correlation?
It's
well,
just
a lot of these are years in development.
Yeah,
so from the time we get the laptop to the time it was designed is maybe oftentimes a couple of years. So they may have decided a long time ago that the butterfly keys didn't work, and it just took a while to get it through the pipeline.
Rub, I think. Yeah,
and they didn't want to admit it.
Because you have to design. You design the key, and then you have to design, exactly how it's going to feel, and then you have to design exactly how you're going to manufacture it, and then you have to test it 1,000. You have those little things that just bang on it, bang on the keys.
Yeah.
For literally all day, every day for weeks, and so there's all these things that have to happen, and those things take a long time to get through the pipeline. So now it might have been the reason he left. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like maybe he's just upset about the keys. But
how dare you? We worked so hard on the butterfly key.
But my guess is those keys were probably corrected years ago.
Yeah,
and then they just took a while to get out of here.
Well, and it's taken a while to get them to the other laptops, which they really need to do. Because at this point,
the reputation of the keyboards is just
sad.
Yeah.
You're buying a new laptop, you wouldn't even think about a Mac.
We call the Cupertino idiot tax for a reason. I mean, it's just like. Why buy a laptop at 50% extra of the cost if it doesn't have 50% extra?
I have to say, I bought the new 16-inch because I, on the other hand, like Macs, and priced it, compared it point by point as close as you can with a comparably equipped Lenovo. The Lenovo was $4,000. Mine was still expensive, but less than $4,000.
Interesting.
So I don't know how real that tax is anymore.
Well, hang on. Didn't they just produce a laptop which was $6,000?
No, you're talking about.
They produced a monitor that was.
You're talking about the XDR monitor.
And from a professional perspective, that is actually a really good a really good deal. We pay a lot more for a monitor of that accuracy. So
the Mac Pro is $6,000, and the monitor is $5,000. Unless you want a stand, then it's $6,000.
Right. Oh, of course, yes, $1,000 stand, of course.
I think we're due. They said Mac Pro will be out in December. This is now officially December 1st, so this is the month. Coming this fall is really quite a stretch, Apple. It still says that on the store.
Well, technically speaking, the winter solstice is December 21st.
They have 3 more weeks.
You have a little bit more runway.
Yeah, and it really does look like a cheese grater.
A really nice cheese grater.
You're going to buy one?
I'll wait.
It's really expensive.
So I have a thing about all computers, but I have to admit, especially Apple. I love Apple. Obviously, I'm a big Apple fan, but I don't buy the first version of anything.
No.
So I will wait until they get
at least
the
you
point.
can wait till version 2. If you're buying Microsoft, you've got to wait till version 3. So
Right. So I like to let everything kind of sort itself out. There's always some weird little glue that wasn't quite right, or some part of the process that gets itself kind of worked out, and I prefer to wait. I paid the price by ordering the Mac Pros,
the
trash cans right out of the gate, and there was just all these RAM issues. And
I had I think 2 units before I got one that sort of worked.
Yeah.
This is pretty, I guess. It's weird looking. By the way, that's a Jony Ive. I'm pretty sure that's a Jony Ive designed cheese grater. I mean, those
it
holes.
honestly looks like something you'd pick up as part of the Target Michael Graves line.
Well,
it does. It does.
What
Target
does Michael Graves specialize in? Clothing, implements?
No, he was, I believe, and I could be wrong about this, or I could Google this while I'm talking and make it sound like I know what I'm talking about.
That's what I do. I highly recommend it. You got to work fast, though.
He was one of the first designers that Target worked with, architecture. He was one of the first
designers.
designers.
An architect.
The reason I know his name and the reason it stuck around is he was one of the first brand name type designers Target began working with back in the Aughties when they started rolling out their quote unquote prestige lines.
Oh, I recognize these. Carson's showing some of his kitchen appliances. Very distinctive, that toaster. Yeah. I've seen that toaster, yeah.
And he did a line of kitchen tools for Target, too. And to be honest, that computer reminds me very much of the cheese grater.
The biggest, a lot of us sat around, in our office talking about when we thought,
wait a minute, there's the cheese grater.
There it is.
That looks just like a Mac Pro.
It
really?
Does, yeah.
Let's recontextualize it. Yes. That cheese grater looks like the new Mac Pro.
Uh-huh.
Of course, it came out 10 years earlier.
Well, So what has Jony Ive been doing? I ask you.
I wonder how much the wheels on that cheese grater cost.
Yeah, exactly.
They haven't announced the price for the wheels on the Mac Pro yet. We're still waiting for
I think
that
that a lot of us, though, we were sitting around our office at one point talking about when the new Mac Pro comes out, when there started to become rumors that there was going to be a new one and they were going to redesign it. Mm-hmm. And our big thing is that we wanted it to be able to remove the feet and the head. That's what our complaint was. We loved the cheese grater, except what we didn't love was the fact that we couldn't rack mount it and that we couldn't remove the handles and the feet. They were part of the design, and we were just like, we just really want that. And you couldn't. It's really painful to pick up a cheese grater and carry it around because of the way the metal is.
Yeah.
And so it really felt like when they announced this that they kind of sorted out what most of us that are pros that are using these heavy duty. We want it to be extensible. We want to be able to swap cards. We want to be able to add cards. We want to be able to do all the things that we couldn't do with the trash can. And
it looks like you can with this.
And this is and a lot of us all said we don't need it to be any different than a cheese grater. Just slightly, just tune it up a little bit, and we're good. We have different needs than a lot of other people.
For 3 years, I've been saying, Apple, why are you worried about designing a new Mac? Just re-release the cheese grater. You've got a great.
Well, and this one takes it a lot further. I mean, it can.
It's a better
extensibility. The extensibility of this computer, because there are people.
These are all modules
that I work with.
You could pull out the modules
that will spend $50,000 on upgrading this thing.
Right.
And what we want is what I thought is that within the next couple of years, I was going to have to move all my production to PCs because I wasn't going to have anything that I could extend. My biggest complaint about the Mac, the new Mac Pro, is that we don't have NVIDIA cards because
and we won't now, apparently. NVIDIA has decided not to.
Really?
No longer.
They're not doing it anymore.
They gave up.
This is a control issue where NVIDIA wants to write the drivers, Apple wants to write the drivers. The problem is that the OS relies so much on OpenGL or Metal or that they can't. Apple is not going to give up control of the raw code to the card, and NVIDIA won't give up the control. And it's been that way for, I don't know, a decade now. I mean, and the problem is that the way that ATI, it's not ATI anymore, it's AMD. Someone keeps on correcting me when I say that on shows. AMD.
Former.
I call it ATI because I think that the ATI graphics, or the AMD graphics cards stink, and the AMD CPUs are great. I have a Threadripper at home. I love that. I love the CPUs. So I feel like their CPU unit done well. And it really comes down to how they approach the way that they manage the data coming through. So the ATI, what used to be ATI, the AMD card, breaks it into very small little pieces that accelerate it. And that process, from a professional graphics perspective, is really painful compared to NVIDIA. And so your performance for heavy graphics solutions tends to be better in NVIDIA and more stable than AMD. At least that's. So as we wrote it, that was what we were up to.
NVIDIA has confirmed in the latest release notes that the CUDA toolkit version 10.2 will be the last one to support Apple's Mac OS. CUDA is NVIDIA's low-level GPU control language, right? Like OpenCL was.
And I don't think Apple really cares. I mean, I think
Apple has Metal. Is Metal equivalent?
Yeah.
So they've been suing each other. It's a shame because, at least until recently, you could buy an eGPU and put NVIDIA cards in it, and it would work, right? Now is it just not going to work at all?
No, we haven't even tried for a long time.
Okay.
It was always a kind of a wonky solution if you were.
So no more CUDA in the Mac WUDA. Sort of. Okay. And then everybody in the one of the big stories of Black Friday was the Ryzen, the AMD parts flying off the shelves for people who build their own computers. This is suddenly people are looking at AMD and saying, it used to be you'd say, well, I'm going to save a lot of money, but I'm going to give up 15% performance. Now I'm going to save a lot of money over Intel, and I'm going to get 15% better performance.
I have in the computer that I built. I have a Threadripper that is in the last generation, and it just screams. Yeah, on the stuff that I put it up against. I'm doing heavy lifting
for
with
multi-core processes, right? That's really what you want.
Yep. But we're seeing this with Ryzen and also with Epic. It's AMD has really sort of come back because Intel's been mired in these production problems. They've been spending so much time trying to get to 10 nanometer and failing. And reducing demand on reducing production on the 14 nanometer, and then we're just going to the standard thing. Let's up the margins a bit. We'll get extra cash and they're still warning OEMs, we can't provide you with enough 14 nanometer chips. This is an ideal time for AMD to swoop in and say, well, guess what? We've got them, you know.
AMD doesn't have yet a portable solution because the
bit
power
thin on
usage,
that.
the TPU on these is hundreds of watts. I mean, these are there's a light bulb in your computer. They have confirmed that they will have a 64-core Threadripper next year. It'll be $2,000, but
I bet you can fry bacon off it, but yeah.
and it probably is 250 watts at least. So
I can't wait.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's just Intel have just been taking the mic, taking the Mickey with this on.
See, but that's the problem. You can get a 28-core Mac Pro, but you might want a 64-core something else running Threadripper.
It just really depends on what I'm doing. So the main thing that I do on my PC is photogrammetry, and so I'm throwing.
What's photogrammetry?
So photogrammetry is you take photos of a location or of an object from multiple angles, and then you allow the computer to basically create a 3D model from those photographs. So it triangulates the position of the cameras, then builds depth maps and generates geometry. And for instance, the data set that I'm working on right now has 493 million polygons, and you can't run it on a Mac at the moment. You can't move it around. You can't do anything with it. You move it, then you go do something else.
That's an Intel issue. That's because it's running on Intel.
It's the graphics. It's the everything. It's just too heavy for what I have, and so and then you get into I can't even decimate that to a reasonable number of polygons without 256 megs of RAM. I just run out of RAM.
Right.
And so it is a so those become issues that you need these heavy lifts. Now the other side of it is I still use Motion and Final Cut and Logic and all those things, and some of those are already as we move towards an 8K world, and I'm already editing on 6K. That I need that processing power. I'm still I needed to be able to throw all that stuff in, do color corrections, do all the effects that I want to do.
Isn't that why Apple built the Mac Pro is specifically for you, for that 8K?
Well, and I think the new Mac Pro, I don't know specifically for me, but for people like me, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's going to be the Mac Pro is going to be incredible for sound designers and video editors that are using Final Cut and people who are doing 3D. I mean, the Cinema 4D and Maya work is going to be.
This really underscores, though, Apple has been hindered by their dependence on Intel for the last 5, 6, 10 years, for a long time, and Apple has really kind of bristled, and so much so that everybody agrees, and Apple's sort of telegraphing they're probably going to move off of Intel at some point. There's no way, though, that they can do what the Mac Pro is doing on ARM.
No, not yet. I mean, another decade maybe.
I read an article, probably in Forbes, where you read articles of this kind, that said, it's clear Apple's going to AMD. Otherwise, why would they be doing Catalyst and pushing it so hard? That's the technology that lets Apple iOS developers port their apps easily to Mac OS.
I don't think that's the same issue.
I don't. Well, but then the problem when you move to ARM is either you're going to have emulation, which Windows does, and it's terrible and slow. Or
let's not forget Windows RT from a few years ago as well, which was an actually.
But even Windows on ARM now on a high-end Qualcomm / Microsoft chip is still stuck in 32-bit, and it runs in emulation. It's not great. Or you can somehow create a whole new code base of ARM software.
So I
imagine there's somebody writing Logic and Final Cut in Apple on the spaceship campus is rewriting that for ARM, right?
I have no idea, but I think we could see the light, the MacBooks. Not the MacBook Pros.
That's the first to go.
The MacBooks, I think I could see them going to ARM. And I could see, and maybe they don't run, all those things, but the, it's a big lift to take the code base for something like Final Cut or Logic and move it, from one place to the other. And so I think that's going to, I have no idea how long that will take to
So we're a ways off.
But I think that it'll take a long time to reproduce what AMD or Intel is doing, is from a sheer lift.
Called the radio show and said, do I have to get the XDR monitor? I want to get the Mac Pro.
It just depends on what you're doing. If
Well,
you're
that's
doing
what I
something
told
that's color sensitive, yes,
If
absolutely.
you're doing color correction and you would be buying a $30,000 professional
Or-
monitor for that.
or $12,000 or $8,000 monitor.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in that range.
Right.
$5,000 or $6,000 for a color accurate monitor that's some version, some flavor of HDR. is that's par for the course.
So HDR is the key, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's a very accurate monitor.
You can get a color accurate monitor now from Apple, or if
at that size,
what is
they're all going to be in that
LG
range.
Fine, whatever they call the LG monitor.
Yeah, I don't
5K monitor. That's pretty accurate, I would imagine. Apple's been selling it until now.
Right. Yeah, it is. But getting it to be both HDR and that bright at that for that long a period of time. So a lot of them will say, well, you want to look at what the peak values are as well as the constant values of how many nits the monitors are. And I believe I can't remember exactly, but I believe that the Mac the new monitor is near 1,000 nits constant, and I think that it's 1,600.
That's
peak,
bright.
I believe. I don't have that right in front of me, but
Would
those
you wear sunglasses when you were
the brightest I've seen. The brightest I've seen is 4,000 nits, and that is. I mean, you feel like you should be feeling it. Like when you see sunlight,
it hurts.
You feel it doesn't hurt. It's just that it's so bright, and it's
That's
not
what
just
you want. If you're J.J. Abrams, you want those specular highlights to almost burn your retina.
So you look at the brightness and you almost expect to feel heat.
You almost expect to feel heat from it at 4,000.
That's fine. The little sort of dark sunglasses on.
Yeah.
Well, and the big thing is also with these monitors,
the mountains to prevent space blind, the snow blindness. Those things.
the other side of it is also the big. The big thing is that the pixels can go all the way to 0. So that means that you get these super dark blacks that you don't typically see on your monitor.
That's the HDR.
Well, no. Well, HDR is the high dynamic range. So we're talking about, I mean, the pure HDR is, I mean, not pure, but the production HDR we call PQ 2020, and that is the new format that is going to describe a much wider range of
Brighter
brightnesses.
brights and darker darks.
Yeah.
So why do you need to see brighter brights and darker darks?
Because that's how life looks.
Well, no. I'm trying to extrapolate out like the business applications or the industry or the industry applications, or like why this is a net benefit to some industry or some end user.
It turns out that most of us will notice the quality of the image more readily if we look at the dynamic range than if we look at resolution. If we have a 4K image and a 1080p image. A lot of people can't tell the difference between that, whereas
especially
a lot of people,
at some distance,
right? But a lot of people will see the difference in the monitor, and
right away. And when HDR means much more to me in a monitor than 4K,
and especially in it where it makes a difference is not, for instance, in a studio like this that has been lit for SDR. This is we've compressed,
everything's
designed
bright.
it. It's
everything's bright.
Well, it's designed for it though. It's designed for that range,
right?
But when you go into HDR, so SDR, I believe, is in the, I never remember the exact number, but it's about 4 or 5 stops of light. Each stop is twice as much light as the last one, whereas HDR is in the 15 to 18 stops of light. So it's remember, each stop is twice as much as the last one. So it's a huge range of brightnesses, and we can't describe, if you shoot in SDR, we can't describe an outside scene where the sun's out. It'll immediately, one part's too dark and the other part's too bright. It's out of the gamut of SDR. Whereas
everything
in HDR
here is within a narrow range of brightness.
So it's basically a technological leap, like the one that was taken from, say, filming nighttime scenes with a blue lens in the 1960s to actually being able to film at night.
To some degree.
This is another visual leap like that, where you'll have a technology that allows you to more accurately convey degrees and shading of light.
It's definitely getting, like I saw, I was at NAB, and they were showing, Sony had a big LED wall, and they were showing 120 frame per second, 8K HDR. And when I got to a point where it filled my periphery, when they moved the camera, my stomach would pull in because my brain could no longer tell that I wasn't looking into a window. Like it was just like and
you
it's
can no longer detect that you're looking at an image.
You're no longer looking at a monitor.
Like
you're looking
at this point, what's happened is
life.
The monitor's ability to reproduce what we can perceive is now.
Well, and
bingo. That's really what you're going for, right?
Well, and the issue is that we, the big question that we have in our industry right now that there's a lot of discussion about is, do you want to go to that point? Because you get into this uncanny valley that part of what
You don't want people getting sick in the theater because it looks like you're
Right.
moving them without their
or there's a lot of people who say that the 24 frame per second is a subconscious way to tell the brain
it's fake.
This is fake.
It's not
Yeah.
real.
Remember, this is fake. Whereas
honestly, I don't like high frame rate for that very reason. It's too real. I want that dreamy movie.
I think for narrative, I think what we may see is a split where we have
Documentaries
narrative,
Right.
goes down, stays in the 23.98.
Yeah, 'cause it's
whereas
dreamy.
Documentary when you're shooting 8, because I will tell you that at like 8K, 120 frame per second wildlife
It's very realistic.
is stunning.
Yeah.
It
You're
is
right.
stunning.
You're
and,
right.
and it's just
And I
this
can accept
amazing
that.
experience.
We're
We're
talking
talking,
at a bird.
cat headbutting the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
and
you
I
don't
think-
want to see
Well, the thing
Gandalf's
I'm
staff
wondering about
at
now, for
8K
example, is when we
because it
start
looks like
talking
it's
about
made out of
augmented-
resin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gandalf stuff. I'm thinking about augmented reality, for example.
Well, we're barely.
Well,
I mean, you can see the screen
50
door
years down
nowadays.
here, but-
Yeah, this thing is inches from your eyes.
No, but what I'm thinking, for example, is one of the things I've noticed with augmented reality is it's augmented only in this. It's not real. I mean,
Yeah.
you can be like, oh wow, I'm looking
And I
at the
think
Champ
you
de-
want it that way.
But if you're using augmented reality on, say, a space station or down
that
in
might be
Antarctica to
Yeah.
walk somebody through removing
Yes.
a tumor while they're snowed in for
Yes.
5 months, this is when visual acuity is going to matter. And so what I'm trying to think about now is or what I'm and you know many things, so you may be the one to answer this question. How long until this gets to a point where it's not just for filming and industry use, but it moves into
Oh, it's already there.
consumer.
I mean, it's being used. So when you look at industry, I mean, Microsoft is actually one of the furthest along
Yeah.
when it comes to the AR stuff with the Hololens.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
And so what they're doing is probably the furthest along.
They were so
but-
smart to team up with NASA because that gave them just a
Oh,
bunch of great test
when I
suites
tried
right
out
there.
the first HoloLens demo machine on the Mars Curiosity thing, I gave a very excitable interview to Megan, and did swear a certain amount in that, but it just blew you away.
Yeah.
Well, and they,
sometimes you have to swear.
I think that they learned from Google what
Yeah.
not to do,
Yeah.
which is
Yes.
let average people just wander around with the stuff on and do things that were inappropriate. And so, whereas by keeping it inside the industry, they were able to. And I they've done some great stuff in construction, for instance, where you can walk onto a construction site and visualize all the things that are out there in front of you before they're built, and have a discussion about it. And
And they
so,
built
One of the
hardware that
demos
w-
I got to do with the HoloLens was precisely that, where we walked onto a construction site. You got to see how you got to see how to build things within the constraints of regulations and within the constraints of where the electrical outlets have to go, where the ventilation shafts have to go, things like that. And I also really liked another one of the demos I did had you taking a look and trying to repair plumbing infrastructure, not knowing how, and then being able to call up a manual
Right.
in your left-hand periphery and a live expert in your right.
That's the one I like.
And
'Cause
that
a
was
live
the one that
expert
blew me away. Was
can
the
circle
idea,
and say, see this joint? Turn
and they can
this.
see what,
to be.
and they're
Yeah.
and they're following your online. But that was also an area where I thought, wow, we're going to get to a point where you're going to need to be able to see, to quote unquote see really well.
Well, and
in
one of the-
order to be
one of
able
the
to
tests that-
effectively repair something.
one of the tests that we did was with Hangout before Google turned Hangouts off on. The only thing that we liked using the glass for was the Hangouts feature, and then Google turned it off. But what we did is we could have the same camera on either side of thousands of miles apart, and I have the camera, they have the camera. I'm seeing what you're seeing what I'm seeing, and you have someone trying to learn how to use the camera, and I'm going, no, don't touch that button, touch this button, and your ability to very quickly have a conversation about that, and that was just with glass, and that was 5 years ago. I mean, it's not even new, new stuff. But I think that there's from a learning perspective, from an experiential perspective, there's going to be a huge explosion, but it's still
Didn't
Yeah.
we go
little
through
ways
this
out.
with video games where, they went from hyper unrealistic to more and more realistic, but we seems like we hit a brick wall where, and maybe it's the uncanny valley, but where we can't get, I mean, video games today are pretty realistic,
Yeah.
but they're not, you would never mistake it for reality.
We're still.
Are we still making that progress, or did it just slow down, or have we
Some of it-
hit a wall?
Some of it has to do with the lowest. You're still building video games for the lowest common denominator. So
right.
if I put a
if you knew everybody's using a Mac Pro and
or if I knew that everyone was using a really powerful PC with 4 GPU with 4 top of the line GPUs, and I have seen solutions
Ray
that use
tracing,
those.
NVIDIA ray tracing GPUs.
The ray tracing is not as important as the global illumination. So being able to calculate shadows in soft light is actually, the ray tracing is cute. I mean, I'm glad that they're doing it, but I rendered 50 shots for Star Wars without any ray tracing with a shiny ship. So it doesn't. You don't need.
But you didn't do it in real time.
No, I didn't do it in real time, but I'm saying I didn't need ray tracing either to pull it off. You use reflection maps and stuff like that, and so it's not. You don't need. The ray tracing will be useful for things, but I'm more interested in the global illumination, the ambient
illumination. Okay.
That's calculating. If you think of light as like heat, it hits something, heats that up, and then it bounces off. So it's all the indirect light that we have that really makes things look.
That sounds like ray tracing.
And then,
isn't that what you're doing? Is bouncing?
Well, that's. Ray tracing is coming from
going?
the point of the light bouncing around and then getting to but it's just reflecting in a way that global illumination is really area of light. Okay. But the big thing is being able to add. So part of the problem that we have right now is we can't add enough geometry. So like even now, I've been doing a bunch of AR tests with Apple's Reality Composer. About 1.5 million polygons. That's what I can put into an iPhone, last generation iPhone, and so I don't. Like that's about
What's
as far.
a video game doing these days?
Oh, they
more
do
than that.
They do more than that, but the I don't know exactly what the numbers are. It depends on how they chop it up and everything else. But the point is that we need to get to a point where we're processing 50 to 100 million polygons. We're processing gigs of texture maps, and of course some of that is managed by using what we call a level of detail. So LODs, where you change the resolution based on the distance to the camera, but those are. You still need to have that. That's what's not making it look real. That and motion capture. Motion capture is it got us 90% there. Yeah. But we have to get to a point where the characters are, AI is driving the character motion, and it's not being. It's not.
Move as opposed to
they just move the way they should move. Yeah. It's not like I'm gonna, because right now we're
still simulating.
Most of our games are. Yeah. Most of our games are. I have a run move. Yeah. I have this move, and I might blend between those, but those are still human moves. What we're not doing yet is having the computer go, I have a range of motion, and I'm just going to figure out what I should be doing.
This follows a general law of computing, which is that the first 90% are doable, relatively easy. The last 10% is much, much harder.
Right.
Well, how often does a character in a video game have a startle reflex?
Right. And you need that. When that thing hits your face and sucks the brains out of you, you got to be startled, or it's just not realistic. Boy, I had a lot more questions like, why do you think Intel stumbled? But I got to take a break. I'll let you guys think about that. And I also want to talk about Apple giving Crimea to Russia. Yeah. It was very nice of them. Thank you, Apple. Our show today brought to you by My Beautiful Mattress. Sometimes you look around at the world and you get home, and your sanctum sanctorum, your special place is that bed in your bedroom, and you get in bed and you pull the covers up over your head, and you want it to be perfect. You want it to feel great. You want to spend the night there and not worry about the world. Just sleep the way a baby sleeps. That's why you need a Casper mattress. It's a sleep brand that is created. They're an online-only retailer of premium mattresses, and that's key, online only, because they eliminate the middleman so they can make beautiful, fantastic mattresses without that big markup, like the 100% markup that the mattress store makes. Now, there's a downside to that, because I think a lot of people for a long time thought, well, I have to go to the mattress store and sleep on the mattress or lie on it anyway for 5 minutes if I want to buy it. So Casper had to solve that. And they took that engineering approach to that problem too. They put their great minds to it, and they said, oh, what if we let you have it for 100 days? And if at any time in the 100 days it's not perfect, you send it back, we give you every penny back. How about that? That's the key. And mattresses are just the beginning at Casper. Their engineering talent has now created that glow light. I love that glow light. Helps you fall asleep. It dims. It slowly wakes you up. You can pick it up and carry it to the bathroom with you, and it's nice and low. It won't wake you up. They also have bed frames now. Everything you need to create that special place you go to run away from the rest of the world. Casper just introduced a new hybrid mattress collection. I just got the hybrid mattress. It combines the pressure relief of their original award-winning foam, but they've done something. It's funny. It's a little, at first, they said no springs, but they realized there's a certain reason you might want springs. And so this hybrid mattress collection has the foam, but also durable and very gentle springs. And actually, I love it. You got to try it. It offers luxurious comfort, resilient support, elevated lift. So it's a little more active in its support. It also is more durable for all body types. The spring network actually enhances airflow. It's always been good on a Casper mattress. It is even better now, so it really helps you sleep cool. Very important to sleep. And for a man of a certain girth like myself, the other thing the spring does, it gives you edge support, a little bit better edge support. So I used to roll out of bed in the morning, literally roll out of bed. Now with the springs, I can sit up and get out of bed like a normal human. There's my Casper hybrid mattress. I just got it. Like all the Casper mattresses, I still don't know how they do this. It comes in a surprisingly compact box. That is a king that is in a box, tiny little box.
Nice Jim Jams as well.
You like my Jim Jams? Those are my special Casper Jim Jams. I did make one mistake, though. I opened it in the foyer. Probably should have taken it to the bedroom.
Yeah.
Because once you open it up, it goes,
and then it expands out,
and now it's full size. But watch the comfort. Oh. So even though it's got springs, there's no sense of springs. It's just a little bit better edge support. A little bit. I just love it. So soft and comfortable. Casper gives you free delivery and painless returns in the U.S. and Canada. 100-night risk-free sleep-on-it trial. You call them up, say I don't like it. They will come and get it. You don't even have to box it back up or anything. Even with the springs, it still fits in that great box, which means it's great for getting into any room, any building, even if it's upstairs. Look, I want you to get a Casper today. So we've got $100 off towards select mattresses. If you go to casper.com/twit1, and you have to use the promo code TWIT1, TWIT and the number 1 at checkout. CASPER, casper.com/twit1. $100 off select mattresses by going to casper.com/twit1. Promo code TWIT1. Terms and conditions apply. I'm telling you, it's hard to explain how nice it is. You just have to take my word for it and try it for yourself. And then you get up and you come out in the world. And
it's the hard, brutal realities of life when you leave the nice, warm, cozy bed. It's all
this is in a way the same argument we've been having about Apple since Hong Kong, since it's just since they moved the servers to China. Obviously, Apple has to live by the rules of the nation it's operating in.
I could put up with it a lot more cheerily if I don't get promoted tweets on my Twitter timeline going, "Hi, we're Apple. We believe in privacy for everyone."
Yeah, they set themselves up.
Yeah, subset unless you live in China or Russia, in which case, screw you. We got profits to make.
So you may remember Russia invaded Crimea. It's always been a disputed region. It was part of Russia for a while, and it wasn't. But until they invaded, it was an independent part of Ukraine.
It was a part of Ukraine, and they did something which was really quite... It hasn't really been done that much these days. It was a soft invasion.
Yeah.
So they flew Special Forces troops into Crimean airports, who then took over the airports, and then they flew troops in on commercial airliners. It was an amazing thing, but at the same time, it worked. Whether or not it's ethically there, I have severe doubts on that front, since
of course,
it's less than a good thing for
international
countries to start
sanctions instantaneously.
In the EU, yes. In the US, they seem to be easing up on those recently.
And Apple's eased up a little bit because Russia demanded, and Apple agreed to show Crimea, the annexed peninsula, as part of Russian territory.
Yeah.
If you're using the maps inside of Russia. Now, what I don't know is if Google did the same thing. I don't think so. Did they?
Back in March.
They did it in March.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting.
They didn't get a lot of attention for that.
Google Maps did this back in March.
Now, when you view it outside of Russia,
it's still part of Ukraine, but
it's Ukraine. It's not part of any country.
Yeah.
It's just,
So how long until Poland starts nervously eyeing its own?
yes, exactly.
Yes, we've seen
or
this.
The Baltic
We've
states.
seen this movie
Yes.
before.
Yeah.
Does Apple represent? They don't represent Taiwan as part of China, or do they in China? Because that's another
actually might.
disputed thing, of course.
That was
Yeah.
why there was a movie that a children's movie that just came out that's been actually banned in several Southeast Asian countries because it was a DreamWorks co-production with China. It's called Everest, and the characters are shown traveling from one end of China to the other to return a baby Yeti to Everest.
Aww.
Oh,
It's very heartwarming,
bless.
except that it's China's version of what they think the world looks like.
Right.
And several Southeast Asian countries have taken issue with where China chose to draw its maps.
I can think of several million Tibetans who might take interest with the fact that it's not part of China in the first place.
Yes,
But,
and the U.S. and DreamWorks were both like, well, tough. This is how the movie's going out. If you don't like it, your country doesn't have to
Is
show
your
it.
mic on, Carson?
Yes, because I was just going to say that when is this? This is in 2013, Taiwan demanded that Apple change the map that shows it as part of China.
And did they?
I'm not sure that they did. I know recently that they took out the Taiwanese map from emojis in
That's
China.
right. You only have the flag. I feel like this is a minefield that any transnational company is going to have to deal with.
yeah.
I mean,
can
you have no choice. You either say no and then be thrown out, right?
I mean, I can understand
Potentially.
if Russia has passed a law saying that it is a crime within Russia to refer to the Crimea as part of Ukraine.
Right.
It is as is and will always be a part of Russia. So I can understand the argument. Yeah, we're obeying international laws, but then don't bill yourself to your core U.S. market as we're great defenders. We're great defenders of freedom and true facts when you're pulling this kind of rubbish.
Well, I think that the line that Apple seems to be drawing so far is to the phone. Everything else is kind of fair game. So Apple has said, here's the deal. We're not going to let you into the phone. Like we're not going to give anybody the keys. The encrypted part, we're not going to, that part Apple, I don't think is given, I could be wrong, but I don't believe Apple has given that to any country under incredible duress. They've said, no, we're not going to do that. Now, the iCloud, everything else is all kind of like, well, we follow the laws that we have, to some degree, I think that if they're going to draw a line, I'm happy they're drawing at least a line there because nobody else is.
I mean, you can't forget, as of 2017, the Apple iPhone dominated approximately 80% of Russia's smartphone market.
Oh, wow.
The premium store.
Premium
smartphone.
smartphone
So 600 and above. There's a lot of people who bought a lot. I mean, I think
Cheaper
it's
phones, yeah.
I think it's a much small. I think it's like
And
12%.
then
of it.
China is currently about 20% of Apple's business. So if you're a CEO and your
What do you
job
do?
is literally to maximize value for shareholders, then these are the things you're staring down where you're like, if I make a very expensive and principled stand, is this going to work for me, the company, the world in general? There's.
Well, and also,
I'm not defending any choices. I'm just pointing out this is kind of the.
Yeah, I don't
calculus you're
envy
gonna have to
Tim
make.
Apple. It's a difficult position to be in.
Yeah.
I also think that Apple may only have a couple more years in Russia anyway, because they're passing laws now that say that unless you have Russian built
unless you've got
software,
software,
you're not going to be able to sell the gadget. And so this may only be to get a handful of more sales through. I mean, not handful, millions, but there may be a push for the next couple of years to buy lots of Apple products because you won't be able to buy them after that. You'll have to use Russian.
So this is them having a fire sale in effect?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I believe that's the case, that Russia's going to press down on that.
No,
But
they announced.
they're
a couple
trying to
of weeks ago
disconnect.
that they're going to. You have to have certain software installed on there,
and that software
along the
cannot
lines of
be
the Chinese
Telegram.
version. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you do.
That's always a sign of a healthy environment when you're explicitly restricting hardware and software options to your citizens.
Yeah, but
Always.
I mean, as you said, though, I mean,
See, there's two different ways to look at it. You could also say it's not unreasonable to say there should be Russian written equivalents of software on the phone. God bless America. We should have America. We always say
To
made
mandate it,
in
though?
America.
to mandate it, that's a very
Well,
big
this is all
step.
part of both Russia and China trying to control their populations.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
they're
we see it that way. Maybe they see it as just a patriotic.
As a bolstering of nationalist
support-
industries?
Yes.
Honestly, I think that's the way it's going to be sold into America when it comes in that way as
Yeah.
well. Because we're going
Made
to be
in the
faced.
USA will be a thing.
Yeah, I mean,
was
we-
this code written by Americans?
They already are doing it. Try and buy a Huawei phone in the United States.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, you saw with Trump's visit down to the new Apple factory in Austin, which wasn't new at all.
Poor Tim Apple, who had to sit there and
but here's the
trying to
thing
hold
is
his
when I saw that happen, what I thought is Apple currently also has a news product. And if the CEO of the company that has a news product is willing to stand there and not correct a record because it's politically expedient for him to do so, why would I trust his company's news product?
That's a point I didn't think of.
No,
Very
got it
good
in one,
point.
Lisa. That's brilliant. Yeah.
Well, are they publishing their own? I mean, when I go to the Apple News,
It's
all-
curated.
It's curated.
It's
It's
human
curated,
curated.
but
And if
they
you
take-
take
Curated by Apple employees.
I went and checked Apple News the day after the factory visit.
No stories there?
Oh,
It was all
really?
glowing victory. It was all, it was a wonderful event. The president really loved the
glorious leader went
and
down
they
very
and they
well.
did not mention glorious leader's factual gaffe or Tim Cook's.
How interesting.
Yeah.
Good
and,
research, yeah.
And so I thought to myself, granted, Apple News is not a huge revenue driver for Apple. But what this does point to is right now you have a company that is trying to sell a product with a premium subscription. And this is a company that's also shown very publicly and on the record that they are fine with letting lies slide if it's politically expedient for
Wow.
them.
No, it's the same with Facebook.
That is quite an indictment.
When
You're
Facebook, I was
absolutely
down at a press conference in Menlo Park when Facebook introduced the news feed, and they're like, Zuckerberg himself said, we want to become the front page daily news for every Facebook user. And then when it turns around and bites them on the backside 3 years later, and they're so, actually, we're fine defending lies, you know. But hey, check out the share price; it's great. You know, this is where it's going.
They just this week showed that they're willing to accept a government's definition of what fake news is.
Facebook.
Facebook in
Facebook with
Singapore.
Singapore,
They,
Yeah. It's the Singapore thing. Yeah. So now this is another interesting story. Actually, I pair it with the China story where they announced
And the Dutch case as well. Yeah.
But China has a law now that it's illegal, or to make fake deep fakes, and you have to be identified as such, which in fact seems like a good idea. And Singapore says, I guess it depends on your point of view, that if a story is fake, it has to be labeled as such. Problem with this one is that the story comes from a dissident Singaporean who is in residence in Australia. They're trying to extend this kind of labeling to outside the country.
Indian government's done the same, I believe, as
Yeah.
well.
So Facebook acceded. Again, they're in Singapore and put this notice. Facebook is legally required to tell you, that's their little, hey, we have to do this, that the Singapore government says this post has false information. That's only visible in Singapore, by the way. The Singapore government said it had instructed Facebook to publish a correction notice in that November 23rd post, which contained accusations about the arrest of a whistleblower and election rigging in Singapore. If it is fake news, then it's appropriate to say you got to label it as such.
You said these things
I mean,
called-
don't we wish we could get Facebook to stop government, politicians from lying in their ads? Have we said we want that?
Do we want our government's definition of fake news to be?
Well, who
blunt?
else is to define it?
Well, the person reading it.
Preferably not our government.
I mean, we've
Current
all been saying what a terrible thing it is if Facebook will accept campaign ads that have lies in them.
I'm actually not going to the Facebook press party this Christmas because I know I'm going to have a few.
That's a
and just
strong
lay into
protest. Good job.
them. I know.
I
Rosa
won't
Parks,
go either.
Rosa Parks has nothing on me, but no, it's
I might go, but I won't eat the shrimp. How about that?
no, it's just because I know I'd have one too many, and just I mean Nick Clegg, the head of PR, former British deputy prime minister, he ran an inspirational campaign when he was running on the in the British election, and then 10 years later, here he is saying, "I think it's perfectly all right. The politicians should be able to lie on our platform," and it just. I know I'd punch someone. It's just one of those things.
Well, I want you to go.
My only question is, when have they not been lying? Like ever?
Well, no, they used to have
they?
the old standard of
Politicians.
legal,
So
decent,
like,
honest, and truthful. You had to do that in, I don't know, in the UK, but over
Okay,
here,
in
maybe
in
not.
American press,
Yeah.
dating back 150 years, they've been lying through their teeth.
Every single
You know,
time.
every single
one.
the Willie Horton, the
Constantly.
so the thing is that I think part of the problem is that where do you draw the line on what is a lie and what is bolster and what is and who makes that decision? I think that all of this is really much more complicated than we should. I think that you either do what Twitter and Google, what Twitter did, which is said we just don't want the money, or which I do understand the argument that it definitely damages the ability for the outsiders to get in. Because there
almost is a tradition in this country of, in fact, there is a mandate from the FCC. All broadcast organizations have to accept all political ads for that very reason.
Right.
They can't turn them down because otherwise turning them down would slant the news. So broadcast organizations are required to accept political advertising.
But they also have the I forget what it's called, the equal time.
That's gone.
That has been gone for many,
have.
I believe
the fairness doctrine was
long gone.
eliminated in '87, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what led to the rise of.
But our ads campaigns have been. Our ad campaigns and the rhetoric have been lies for 150 years. Yeah. So thinking something's new, I think that what's more important, like with my kids who were here a minute ago, I give them absurd answers all the time on purpose.
To give them a test.
No, constantly say, don't believe any single point. Like, don't believe any
that's
sort.
great.
And they have to think about it. My wife drives my wife crazy, but they'll ask a question that they could Google, and I'll just give them an absurd answer, and they have to decide whether they're going to with
I'm
a straight
not sure
face.
I agree with that.
So
premise,
but
I support that 100%.
You give your kids
because
absolutely
because I don't listen to. But the thing is that I listen to almost all different views against the news, and I don't. And I believe that I don't think that there's any one of them that are right. I don't listen to NPR and go, oh, they're telling me the truth. I listen to them and going, oh, I get their angle. I understand their angle.
It's nowadays it's getting harder and harder. You feel like everything you hear has a slant. And it's almost.
I'd rather have the press play their hand openly,
and
say this
but
is
it's
where
not
my
easy,
slant and my bias is from.
But they all deny bias.
Well, that's the problem.
And you can't tell, but there's a slant.
But
even
if
the
you were a
Times
little
has
more
slant.
open about, I mean, this is the thing I do actually enjoy about partisan media is they're not pretending to impartiality or objectivity or doing this, the culture of the news. They're like, no, we're coming from the right.
But I really don't want to live in a world where facts are slippery.
No, I mean, the
thing that bothers me about Facebook is they really have no problem bending to whoever is going to scream the loudest.
Well, of course
or make
not.
their
They're,
head
they're
and the same
they
with
have
YouTube,
one responsibility. It's to their
shareholders. Yeah.
It is. I mean, my editor was talking about this, and he said he accidentally clicked on Joe Rogan podcast, and all of a sudden his YouTube suggested windows were full of climate denial, gun rights, just like, and there is that willing amplification effect that you were saying.
Well and I have to admit, I'm careful about what I click on. Like I click on things and I go, I know that I'm voting if I click on that. Like I'm voting. I'm voting to the AI.
I watched.
But I mean, as I know that I've told that AI bot that I want more of that if I click on it, and so I quickly go past it because I'm like, I don't want more of that.
I was at a panel where a couple of the YouTube designers were talking about how they were, here's how we're using user data and how we're making the product better. And their definition of making the product better was, how can we get children to engage in our product longer? And the fact that their first priority was sustained engagement and not how can we make sure the kids aren't watching kitten stomping videos or what have you, should tell you right there that
that one's going to live with me tonight.
The first priority for all of these platforms is not. Well, the first priority for these platforms is shareholder value. The second priority for these platforms is stickiness. It has nothing to do with quality of content or bringing people together or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But if there's a perceived gap with how people like, oh, Facebook, it brings my family together.
Sorry for Mark Zuckerberg to give that speech.
Why is there such a gap?
This is
the question. Did the tech press fail by not saying, hey, this is what this is? You are essentially a data generating.
But do we hold them at a higher level than they should be? I mean, we worked in radio. I mean, the entire design of radio of when I designed. I used to be a program director for a radio station, a music director, and so the entire design is about stickiness, and it's about pulling on your little heartstrings.
Here's the difference.
Seasonal recurrence is all about getting you.
We did the best we could, but the difference between that and Facebook and Google and modern digital platforms. We didn't have the feedback loop that they have.
But we would have.
So we would have if we could have, but we didn't. At best, you got a ratings book every quarter. Amazing. It would take 3 months to find out if it was working, and even then, it was an imperfect science. That feedback loop is so highly refined in modern digital technologies that they're too good. They've been weaponized.
Well, but I think
everybody's doing link bait. But it's been weaponized by these digital platforms.
But I think as a user, we have to decide. I think that the responsibility is going to end up being in the user's hands. Whereas as a user,
it has to be. Unfortunately,
we have to look at that news. I mean, the news has never been the news. Like the news has never been true. The news has been what somebody pushed from some different direction from somewhere, and we have to get to a point where we can discern it. And the thing.
How do you discern it if you don't know? You know it's slanted, but you don't know why or by whom. You don't know which things are facts and which are not facts, and there's no reliable source. How do you discern it?
So generally, for me, and I don't know whether I'm discerning the truth or not, but I look at it from many different angles. Whether it's I want to see what Fox says about it, I want to see what NPR says about it, MSNBC, Al Jazeera, the things that they all agree on, probably pretty close to the truth. The things that everything else is probably BS. And so it's their own little version of their angle or whatever. And when you see that, when you're watching all of those, very quickly you know what their angle is. If you look at 5 or 6 different, ranging from conservative to liberal, you will very quickly.
What if they don't agree on anything?
So far they're agreeing like that somebody went somewhere. And
that's called
said
facts.
And said some
But
things.
I think agreement on facts is even eroding.
But I think that it's constant sampling. We can't just assume that whatever we see, coming up in front of us, and I don't think we ever should have. I think we just happen to, there's a lot of things we believed. We got into a whole war in Southeast Asia based on news that wasn't true.
Yeah,
well,
the Bay of Pigs.
Not
the Bay of Pigs, the Gulf of Tonkin resolution.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what drives me nuts. I mean, okay, I'm getting on a bit, but I'm glad my first editor is dead in a way, because if he'd seen the state that we are in right now, I mean, if you couldn't justify a fact that you were putting in print, he would slap you silly. And I think we've got to extend this. If you're going to put something out there as fact, then you've got to be able to justify it.
So it's not nostalgic of us to say there used to be standards?
No, that absolutely used to be standards. I mean, we used to fire. I've been in companies where we have fired journalists on the spot for making up facts.
Right.
We had one guy who made up a quote out of whole cloth. When he admitted to it, the editor was like, right, pack your stuff, get the hell out.
But there's far more subtle ways of slanting news than making up facts.
But at the point, subtlety has been lost at this point.
Yes.
It's just let's make it up out of whole cloth, and, in 24 hours,
it starts at the top. When you have a president, and I'm not trying to be political here, but I think it's very clear to everybody that you have a president who willingly lies at any juncture,
and there's no consequences.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing.
It starts at the top. It suddenly means, I think it tells everybody in this country, and in many degrees around the world, that facts don't matter.
We used to have a minister called John Profumo in the UK, who in the early 60s,
I remember
he was caught lying.
Scandal.
Yeah, caught lying to Parliament about having an affair with a prostitute, and when he was caught out, he resigned. He devoted the rest of his life to working at the Bernardo's charity and withdrew completely from public life.
Right.
Now, we'd have no politicians if that was the way.
He'd be on Dancing with the Stars today, or Strictly Come Dancing.
I don't know which is the worst punishment.
Yeah.
You're right, though. He would.
Yeah. But to get back to something Alex said earlier, where he's like, I give my kids the wrong answer. One of the behaviors I've noticed with my 9-year-old daughter, which I find fascinating, is before she asks Siri a question, she asks it 2 to 3 test questions where she already knows the answer.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because she wants to
She's a little lie detector.
Well, she wants to see how well Siri knows her Siri stuff. So this way she won't trust an answer from Siri until she can gauge how accurate Siri versus Google Assistant
I kind of want
to
teach my kids that it's important to tell the truth at all times. But maybe that was an old-fashioned concept.
When it's important, I
believe
tell
in
them
the truth.
Yeah.
So when
but
it's
I believe
important,
in the truth in every respect, and I think
I don't know. I think it's
to the best you're
to
able
lie
to
on
tell
Christmas Day when you get that really
I did
crappy
tell him there
present.
was
It's just
I
like,
did tell him that.
oh, thank you, Auntie. I'll treasure it forever.
I used to write letters from Santa in very shaky script. Yeah, you're right. That's a lie.
there's many things that I would consider important. I definitely stay very close to the truth. But I think that there are when we're talking about things that can be absurd. That part of it is building a muscle that says, don't just believe what people say when you come in. Don't be gullible.
Why is the sky blue, Alex?
Yeah, exactly. And I would make something up.
There's a little guy up there with an egg dropper, and he's putting.
Yeah, exactly.
We used to have classes at school. I mean, I have an A-level in media studies, which sounds like the most Mickey Mouse degree ever. But actually, for 2 years, you looked at the media, and it's like, how are they slanting this? What images are they using it? Why are they using it?
That's really media literacy.
Yes.
That's what that is.
And I honestly think that should be brought
That's
back.
something
I mean, for
Everybody
me,
should.
one of the eye openers for me was I was in Zimbabwe during the elections in 2000. This was the big elections that happened in Zimbabwe, where and I happened to be there doing some other work, but I was there on the election night, and I watched. I'm standing where CNN International is reporting, like I'm 2 blocks from them, and they're reporting this huge crowd of people that were all excited about the elections, and I lean out. There's nobody in the streets. And I look way down there, and there's 20 people around a
Clustered
camera.
around it,
And
yeah.
what they did is they took the camera and they rocked it up high and pointed it down so that they could show a crowd. You know, there was maybe 30 people there, but it was like it.
They do this in the movies all the time.
Yeah, and the thing is that, but if you want to show it, you want to make it look like it, because if they had just brought that camera down, and again, it's not lying, but it's not the truth.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where the press is
Slanting.
been slanting forever, since the day it existed. You know, is that it you know, and I think that we have to be clear that just because something is fact checked and everything else doesn't mean that it hasn't been slanted. Who you, as you were stating, who you choose to interview and how you ask those questions and where you go with those things. You know, again, it's not lying, but it's not the truth. And it's not, you know, and we just have to, and it's important for us as viewers to become intelligent and become, you know, and to educate ourselves by looking at it from different angles, by not believing just what we're being, you know, handed.
We're all much more cynical than we used to be.
Well, it
but
needs to be part of something that happens in school too. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
part of civics or if you work it into literature, since you can
Do they
argue
even
that
teach
visual.
civics in American schools these days?
Yes.
I don't know if they do these
They
days.
do.
I have.
They do the
Still
best they
teach
can.
it. Yeah.
But you can also argue that visual literacy is
if-
as vital to being a 21st century citizen.
Yeah.
They do,
in
they do
person as it
internet
is
literacy
written literacy
as well.
Do they? Yeah.
Yeah.
They try.
They try.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
And if it's not in school, at least you have Schoolhouse Rocks.
Oh, there.
I'm just a bill.
I don't know if you can find that on YouTube anymore. The algorithm may actually weighted
it probably
against.
does. Probably does. Let's take a little break. More of our really fabulous panel. I was worried because, you know, Thanksgiving week, there's usually not a lot of tech news. Tech Meme had the same 10 stories in the top all day long, yesterday and the day before and the day before. But we found some things to talk about. Ian Thompson's here from the Register. He's not here. He was here. He's a ghost. Register.co.uk. Hi, Ian. He's going out to get a cup of tea, as he should. Alex Lindsey from the Pixel Core. I don't think I really introduced you at Alex Lindsey on the Twitter, SAY. And, of course, because Alex is back in town, he's done imaging Angkor Wat or whatever it was you were doing. We're going to have you on Mac Break Weekly again Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
Yay.
And I've been starting to ask questions on Twitter about what some things are making you guess at things, and other things are me trying to figure something out. We had a big piece of fruit that I couldn't figure out what it was. And so we're still not totally sure what it was, but I did open it and eat it live on Twitter. So
Where did you get it?
it was a giant lemon that was growing outside my house, and but we couldn't figure out
Was
what
it lemony?
It was very lemony.
That's usually a giveaway.
But it was like the size of a soccer ball.
Wow.
Except it's a lemon. And so
Was
there was
it
a big
bumpy?
discussion about whether it was Ponderosa lemon or whether it was a citron or etrog or a. And even after we cut it open, there's not a lot of certainty about it. But then, so anyway, so
Twitter knows all.
So I've been
if it doesn't, it'll
leaning on
make
my
it up.
followers. I've been leaning on my Twitter followers to educate me. I have an aircraft part that next week we'll talk about.
Isn't there a name for that, like lazy Twitter or something like that?
Crowdsourcing?
Well, it is crowdsourcing, but there's
Lazy
a
Twitter? Yeah, I
something like
think
that.
so.
Yeah, that's Schmeiza.
Yes.
Lisa Schmeiza. We love having you on from IT Pro today.
I love being on. Thank you.
Thank you. It's so nice to have a smart panel for a change. Those guys last week. Oh no, I'm doing the comic thing.
Oh.
That audience last week, they sucked. Actually, yesterday we had a lot of fun. We had a very smart person in here, Steve Gibson, doing his squirrel unveil. He's got a new authentication technology that he thinks solves the whole password problem. It's really impressive. He's put a lot of effort into it. We've been working on it for 5 years. Finally unveiled it, and now we got to get the word out and get people adopting it. But he did a really fabulous presentation, which is on it's the first item on our new events feed. So you can see the squirrel story at twit.tv/ what is it? Events? What is? I don't even know what the URL is now.
Events.
Events. Twit.tv/events. That's where our CES coverage will go. Can you believe it? A month from now,
I'm so glad I'm not going.
from now,
Same.
we'll be. You're not going either?
No.
You're not going either?
It was
Why am I going?
It was one of the conditions of me joining the register. That
Are you
I didn't
going?
have to
I go
do
for you.
any more CES.
You can help us. We might need some help.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, we're going to have fun. It's going to be Aunt and Leo's excellent CES adventure. I'm playing it like Innocents Abroad. We're going to go there. I haven't been there in years. It will, in effect. I think after 5 years, you are a CES virgin, right?
Probably.
You recover your virginity. And I'm going to go down there with Aunt.
There's a
And
mental issue,
we
which
are
is really good.
we are going to we've got Sam Abul-Samid, our car guy, is going to show us the North Hall, all the car stuff. Dick DiBartolo is going to show us the crap in the basement of the Sands, which is always a lot of fun. Scott Wilkinson is going to take us on a tour of audio and visual and television. And we, let's see, who else? Oh, Stacey Higginbotham is going to be there doing IoT. Could you help us?
Yeah, I can help.
You can do some. So we're going to give you a tour of CES. I'm hoping to do, like 10 or 20 segments a day.
Yeah.
Just a ton of them. Just crank them out. It'll be a lot of fun. I'll hold the camera, then Ann will do it, then Ann will hold the camera while I do it. It should be a lot of fun. That will be the next thing on our feed. So you want to subscribe to the Twit Events feed, twit.tv/events. Do we have a promo, Karsten?
We do not have a promo.
Okay, well, I just did
It's been
it.
a vacation week.
I just
so-
did the promo.
Yes.
Right there. Our show today brought to you by LastPass. Another promo. Very good news. You know how there's Citibank Field and Quicken Loans Arena? We've been trying for as long as I've been here to sell naming rights to this studio. I thought this was kind of a nutty idea, right?
Oh, yeah, I heard about
We sold it to LastPass. Shh, don't tell them. It's a great idea. No, it is a great idea. It's going to be, people say, are you still Twit? Yes, it's still Twit, but we're, instead of the Brick House studios or the East Side studios, we're now at the LastPass studios. So that'll start January 1st. We're really thrilled. We love LastPass, and it's a perfect partner because, as you probably know, I've been using and recommending LastPass long before they ever became an advertiser. For a decade, since they started. Steve Gibson, about 5 years ago, I asked him, have you used LastPass? He interviewed Joe Segrest. He went over and talked to Joe, the creator of LastPass, looked at the source code and said, yeah, they're doing it exactly right. LastPass, even since then, has been getting better and better and better. It's an award-winning password vault. I should probably explain what it is. Password Vault, a password manager that helps millions of individuals and over 58,000 organizations navigate their online lives easily and securely. Normally that's kind of those two don't go together. It's either convenient or secure, but not both. But LastPass is both. LastPass helps you generate long, strong passwords that are completely unmemorable, stores them in its encrypted vault, and pops them up and fills them in wherever you are anytime you need them. The vault is never decrypted except on your devices with your special login. I actually use a YubiKey because they support two-factor too. So I make sure nobody can get to my vault. But man, it's there when I need it, on Windows, on Mac, on Linux, in every browser, iOS and Android too. It is a truly awesome product. And in business, it's so important because, when we just got a new bookkeeper. It makes it really easy to share with different team members and even teams so that way a new team member is integrated in right away. We have folders for ops, for engineering, for finance. LastPass minimizes the risk and gives your IT team a break because users can reset their passwords, no lockouts. There are a variety of authentication solutions, including not just two-factor, but multi-factor that takes advantage of geolocation, IP address, users' behavior. So you really know that the people who are using your resources are the right people, the people who are supposed to. You completely can manage and control user access for every access point in your organization. I love their identity solutions, and I love the dashboard we get with an integrated view across all access and authentication tasks so we know who's accessing what, when, and where. Securely manage every password in your business because these days the Post-it note on the monitor is just not a good way to store a password. I was at the drugstore the other day and I saw they sell little books that have the label. They say on the front of the book, "My passwords." I think that's handy. When somebody breaks into your house, they should know where to go to take all your passwords with them. And that's why I use LastPass. In fact, I trust it so much. We store all of everything in there, including Wi-Fi login, software licenses, employee IDs. I put in my personal LastPass vault passwords, but also social security numbers, my passport's in there, my driver's license. It's secure. It's safe. When I travel, I have LastPass with me, and if I lose my password, I know I have an image of it, but no one else can get it, only me. LastPass Enterprise for the business, LastPass Family for your family, LastPass Premium for you. There's a LastPass for everybody, and they've just expanded their business lineup with some great features. You're going to love it. I want you to check it out, lastpass.com/twit, and find out how LastPass can help you in your business and your life. LastPass.com/twit, and soon we'll be welcoming you to the Twit LastPass studio.
It makes it easy to be very aggressive about your passwords. I have these long hashes because you just go, just turn it on.
Right.
And I'm not going to try to remember what that is. I just, because I have it on all my devices, and the ability to share a login without sharing the password in our company was key. We worked on a lot of secure events, and it just became second nature that you'd send somebody, like, you have to log into this account, but I don't want to ever give you the password, because the password can also tell you how people build their passwords.
Your Amazon Echo can now sound excited or disappointed. I'm disappointed in you, Ian.
The question is...
Probably because I refuse to have one of those devices in the home at all. So
Solidarity.
yeah.
You don't have one.
No smart devices.
You probably don't like this because this just makes it more like a human.
I do find. I mean, do you remember when Google at I/O announced they got the automatic callback service with the AI?
with the prosody, they're using prosody
where they were
shape it.
The AI would actually pause mid-sentence and go, that's something to make itself more believable.
Yeah.
I hate that. I really do.
What it was doing is the AI was thinking. So instead of just having a dead space, they'd put an in there, because that's what humans do when they're thinking. Notice I don't say much. I don't think.
It's all those years of radio.
I don't actually have to think. I just talk. Talking
Dead
without
air is
thinking.
a crime. Yeah.
That's my specialty. It is.
Yeah.
No dead air. So this is actually something that you can, as a developer, use. There is a syntax. They call it SSML for indicating with a tag how the voice should sound, whether it's excited or disappointed.
Sorry, I've just got this image of this Echo going, I've got a terrible pain in the diodes
all
down my
up
left
and down my side.
You
want to hear? Here's disappointed Echo. Oh, you got to have my sound on. Is my sound not on? Let's play it again.
I'm playing a single hand in what looks like a losing game.
That's slightly. You want to hear more disappointed?
Yes.
This is even more.
I'm playing a single hand in what looks like a losing game.
That's pretty impressive. You want to hear really disappointed Echo? I don't want to say the A word.
I'm playing a single hand in what looks like a losing game.
That's
so
sad.
Are the feelings contextual? For example, if you ask Amazon Echo something and it tells you no, it says, I'm sorry, the traffic is 45.
It's done manually with an SSML tag. So the developer has to tag it.
All right. So I guess what I'm trying to understand here is why a consumer would willingly have a downer.
The consumer doesn't get a choice.
Oh, man.
So the idea is when you're programming this, like say you're doing a Jeopardy, a trivia, and the person gets it wrong, you can use the SSML tag that says disappointed, and then Alexa will say, instead of I'm sorry you're wrong, I'm sorry. She'll pull an Alex Trebek. Actually, that would be an even better tag, like superciliously, condescendingly disappointed. That would be a good tag. Or just call it the Trebek.
So really, the opportunity here is to figure out how to write the suite of scripts that can do contextual.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
really, that's who does it,
and then slam in the appropriate emotions.
It's not
so you
AI.
don't have some poor person.
That's right.
Oh, they should do a sarcasm one. It'd be like, tell me what the temperature is. Oh, you want to know what the temperature is, do you? Look out the window.
53 degrees if you just open your eyes.
I'm playing a single hand in what looks like a losing game.
That's a little. That's a little.
Is that the normal one or
that's
the
low?
cheerful?
That's low excited.
This you want to hear?
Low excited.
I'm playing a single hand in what looks like a losing game.
Sorry about those blips. That's how YouTube's pausing for it. And this is ready for. This is high intensity. Ready? She's really excited about her losing hand.
I'm playing a single hand in what looks like a losing game.
Oh boy! Isn't that cool?
Okay,
That sounds as though cocaine was involved somewhere along the line.
That's kind of what I would want. Is I would like the wildly inappropriate reactions.
They also.
You're researching funeral homes, right?
Well, that's right. You don't want to. be too happy. So that's what that's exactly.
Well, you know what this reminds me of, and I think I said this when we were talking before the show. In William Gibson's book Mona Lisa Overdrive, one of the characters at the beginning, Angela, is talking to her house's smart computer, and she decides that she's in such a foul mood that she wants the house computer to be terrified of her. And the house computer's like this, and she's like, no, make it more intense. And the computer's like, please pick up the phone. And she's like, fine, keep it at that intensity.
That's what you want.
But I think what unsettles me, both about that anecdote and this potential for the technology, is you may have people who are like, it makes me feel big and powerful to have the machine afraid of me. And
that's probably not a good thing.
yeah, it's socially maladaptive in a way, I
So
think.
Beatmaster asks in our chat room, should we anthropomorphize he says AI, but I don't know if these are AI exactly, speech assistants at all. Shouldn't we make them sound more robotic, not less?
I agree with him, to be quite frank.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it when parents teach their children. Well, I don't know.
I don't think you should anthropomorphize animals, and I think technology is the same way. So,
But you tell kids not to be mean to the dog. Don't talk meanly to the dog.
because the dog is a living creature that
it senses it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not anthropomorphizing
just,
it.
Yeah.
But what if do you tell your kids not to be mean to Echo?
Again, we don't have that in the house. So
You don't either.
We don't.
You don't either.
Oh no, I do.
Oh yeah,
oh
I do
yeah,
too.
Yeah,
Everywhere.
my kids.
I don't just have Echo. I have them. I have Echo
Well, let me
and
give you-
Google.
but-
Yeah, I have
okay.
in the same room. We in our kitchen.
Same
we have
room.
Echo and Apple.
Can you set them
so
up?
when one doesn't get the answer, you're like Echo, and you ask that, and typically Echo is the one that doesn't quite get it, and you go over to the Apple one, and you go, okay, what's this? What's the answer?
I'm
to that?
waiting
And
for
boom.
Echo to correct Siri. I
Although
would
what
love it
we've
if they
done-
could interact.
What we do is we do have an Apple TV, so we do have voice-activated Siri for that. And whenever my husband and I talk to Siri with Apple TV, we do say, Siri, please rewind 30 seconds.
You say
Thank
please.
Yeah.
And you
we
say
model
thank you.
please and thank you because
Yes.
we want to make sure that we
just
don't
feel better
that we
when
don't.
I do
Well, we want to make sure we don't normalize the idea that you can verbally abuse technology because
you
I feel like
can.
you can, but that kind of behavior it's almost
Why?
a parasocial relationship, and then that kind of behavior becomes normalized in social
interesting.
reactions as well.
I'm the same with. The one voice activation thing I use is Google Assistant. When I turn it on, it's just like, "Hi Google, can you give me directions home, please?" And my wife finds this is hilarious, but it's just like, and actually Google did something very interesting when with I think the last build. If you've got a child's voice on there, it will thank you for saying thank you and being
Yes.
polite.
Oh.
And that's actually a really good way of encouraging politeness.
Or anthropomorphization.
I know, but I think machines should be machines and humans should be humans for the next decade or so until it becomes impossible to see the two separate the two because we'll carry
There
on.
was a really great study that came out in the 90s that found out that people actually regarded the characters on television as their friends. They actually had closer emotional connections to them than they did some of the people in their life. And the researcher said, well, they see these people once a week. The TV characters are more steady presences in their life. They don't demand much. It's a rewarding parasocial relationship. And I think that we're going to see the same type of thing with technology, where people are like, when I ask human beings questions, it can be stressful and I don't know how to ask the right question. But Siri doesn't get mad if I have to rephrase my question 5 or 6 times. I still find out an answer. I can rely on them. That said, I don't think it should be with the people voice. I think it should be used very clearly and explicitly as a tool, so there's less of a chance of there being this heavy-duty emotional identification.
And there's definitely many things that I would rather have a machine do for me. There's many things I like if I have to call United, it's because everything else broke, right? I'm not going to call them to ask them.
Choice.
Yeah, the last choice is that I'm going to call. And now I will say,
Honestly,
I
I've let my cable bill inflate to $300 because I so don't want to talk to Comcast.
What I love,
God.
I think they bank on that.
What they're really figuring out is how high can we raise his bill before he'll call us.
Well,
and I don't want to talk to them.
Well, and the funny thing
worth
is
it.
that the humans that I talk on at United are exceptionally good at what they do. There's nothing wrong with
No,
what
they're
doing.
nice, actually.
They're very nice. They're very smart.
Yeah.
They handle all the little weird things that might need to get handled. So it's not that they're doing anything wrong. It's just that I would prefer to do it quietly while I'm doing something else and just have it just sorted.
Come on.
Yeah.
You're an introvert like the rest of us.
Oh, yeah. That's
All of us geeks really don't want to talk
When
to
I
people at all,
when I
ever.
took my first tech writing class in college, the best thing the professor said was, remember that anytime somebody picks up the manual, it's because they've already screwed up on their own and they're looking for answers. So you have to understand, no one reads a manual.
That's
because,
good.
She's like, no one reads a manual first. They always read it when they're upset and confused and need answers. So write with that in mind.
That's really good.
And I would actually like to see more digital assistants developed from that perspective too, where if you're calling on an assistant, it's because you need something.
Yeah.
So, do it for that reason. And
consider the human.
yes.
Yeah. There's a sign in the Big Alexa sweatshop. Consider the human. I don't know if, Lisa raised this, and I was actually kind of like stunned. And I don't know if this is an issue or not. There is a email authentication. There's actually several email authentication technologies.
Oh, we're talking DMARC.
Yeah, one of them is DMARC. There's SPIF, and there's DKIM. If you use one of our sponsors' devices for your email, it automatically does all of those. If you use Gmail, I think it does all of those. But not all email providers do it. And what the idea of DMARC is, it proves you are the sender. And more importantly, it allows inbound email recipients to block unauthenticated mail. And it's one way of fighting spam, because nobody in sending spam can be authenticatable.
Yeah.
Apparently, according to Zach Whitaker, very good tech guy at TechCrunch,
Very good.
DMARC is barely being used by the presidential candidates. Only 7 of the Democrats are using it. He actually has a little table here. The green is people who are using email authentication. Joe Biden, Mike Bloomberg, Steve Bullock, I don't even know who he is, Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, Tulsi Gabbard, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, all are doing it right.
I think Bullock is the Montana candidate.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yes, he's the crooked Democrat from Montana.
And Carson says that because he's from Montana, so he knows.
It does sound like a very bad
mom
TV
has dirt
drama,
on
though.
him.
He's
Your mom has dirt on
he's
him.
a cryptic man
Now,
from Montana.
now that's not fake
I like
news.
the idea the cryptid from Montana is when you're like, Bigfoot?
I trust Carson's mom. And
My
if
mom was an auditor for the. for
stop
the,
now, Carson. You're
Montana state government.
You're digging deeper and deeper into
Yes,
this.
there's
Marianne
some
Williamson is yellow, which means she's not rejecting spoofed emails, but she's using DMARC. John Delaney, Tom Steyer, Donald J. Trump, Deval Patrick, and Bernie Sanders are all yellow. Red is bad. Red is not using DMARC at all. That's oddly enough Yang, who is the technocrat, right? He's the guy who wants to give us all $1,000.
This is all just DMARC. You've got to remember there may be other
There's
security technologies in there as well.
This is why I don't like this story. I feel like this is A, giving too much weight to the value of DMARC, and B, is ignoring there are other solutions.
And giving too much value to email, because they really shouldn't be using
They shouldn't be using email at all. Julian,
Signal.
if they should be using Signal for
Right.
Yeah. Pete Buttigieg, also a technocrat, not using it. Michael Bennett.
Hey, respect. You managed to pronounce his name. I've never been able to do that.
I practice.
Okay.
It's easy. Buttigieg. Just like it's spelled.
So there's a wonderful clip of a British, a Welsh weather forecaster, and he pronounces the whole, the Landfair longest name in England, and he does it all with absolute ease, just like.
But it takes him half an hour. That's the amazing
and
thing.
about half a pint of phlegm. But yes,
Joe Walsh. I didn't know Joe was running for president. And that's not the same Joe Walsh as the Eagles. Joe Walsh.
No, it is not.
Okay.
I wish it were.
And Joe Sestak. I think so. When Lisa said this, I said, well, I don't think this means that they're like dumb.
No.
Or they're insecure even.
There are other ways to spot phishing emails than DMARC. Yeah. And while it'd be nice to use, you want every string on your bow, if it's conflicting with some other security software they've got, I can understand why they don't use it.
His point, and it is well taken, Zach says, is that the hack of the DNC happened because it was a spear phishing attack. So it was spoofed email, and that would have been blocked.
And there were conversations the DNC was having over email that they should have never had over email.
Well, that's where they should have turned to Signal.
Yeah.
I mean,
or not even that. You just don't put that kind of stuff in text.
Although
Put it on Telegram.
This raises a question about tech literacy, tech tools, and like when a cohort starts, like what level of tech literacy a cohort grows up with, because I would wager that a
Bernie's
lot
got
of
it.
people
I know
use
within our
this.
company there was a whole lot of conversations. Like people would go down a path and we'd be like, "Yeah, take that off." Like just
don't write that.
Don't write that. Don't
Yeah.
put that in. Don't like whatever. And it just immediately do not put that in text. I don't want it in Slack. I don't want it in messages.
Yeah.
I don't want it in anything. Like don't say those things. There are things that you say in person. You know, and I think that people, I think a lot of people get very comfortable with these things and
Yeah.
say a lot of things that they
As
shouldn't
my old
say.
editor used to say, you never put anything online, in email, whatever, that you couldn't chiefly defend in your local newspaper.
Oh yeah.
So while it is true that would have prevented the spoofing that got John Podesta in trouble, got the DNC hack, who knows what other things they're doing? They may be doing things that are equally effective, and probably they shouldn't be.
They shouldn't have been doing what they were
clicking
talking about
links in
either. You know, like they shouldn't
email.
have been doing what they were talking about doing.
Yeah.
So that there's that, and then they
shouldn't have been in the email in the
they should have
first
been
place.
talking about it, and then they should have tied it up. But the point I'm trying to make, though, is that how great would it have been if Joe Walsh actually ran for president?
Rocky
Like
Mountain
from the
High,
Eagles?
Joe
yeah,
Walsh.
Well, yeah, like the
Like-
Eagles.
Oh my gosh! Have you
I'm
ever
life
seen?
in
Have
the
you
fast
seen the?
lane.
Have you seen
Oh my
like the
gosh.
4-hour Eagles documentary?
No,
Yes.
No.
it was amazing.
Yes, exactly.
Is it
because
good?
4 hours?
Is it on
It's a
Netflix?
4-hour-long documentary.
It's longer
and
than The Irishman.
First quote from Joe Walsh: like, if you wanted to like permanently break an AI, just ask them to dissect his sentences. It's wonderful.
He's a
And
ham, by the way, and has been
he's
on
all
our Ham
like
Nation
a
show many
great
times.
Philosopher once said, and like he goes for 5 minutes, and by the end of it, I was like, it was a ride, and the whole documentary is just him. It's
I'll have to
glorious.
check that
So
out.
we started the show with outrage over .org. We're going to end with outrage over .gov, a different .gov, .gov.ca. I'll talk about it in just a second. But first, a word from Wasabi, our sponsor. Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. 80% of enterprises in the next 5 years will have shut down their cloud, their on-prem, and replaced it with cloud. And probably you're working for one of those companies. Maybe your company is one of those companies. And I know the first question everybody says, well, is it going to be as useful, as secure, as reliable as my on-premises storage? Well, I've got the answer for you. Wasabi, it is. It's going to be more secure than your on-prem storage, more reliable, more robust. Wait, you say, is Wasabi Amazon? No. Is it Google? No. Is it Microsoft? No. It is another cloud service that I want you to add to your list. There's lots of good reasons to take a look at Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. It is 80% cheaper and up to 6 times faster than Amazon S3. Unlike S3, they don't charge you for egress. Unlike S3, they don't charge you for API requests. And oh, by the way, they support the S3 API. So you already have tools and know how to use it. It's enterprise-class cloud storage with 11 nines of durability. One of the things I love about this, they have immutable storage. That is really useful. Because you can put something on the Wasabi cloud and that ransomware can't get to it. A fumble-fingered employee can't get to it. You can't change it. You can get to it, but you just can't change it. That means you're safe from ransomware. They also have, of course, data center redundancy and regular file integrity checking. So if a file is changed by even 1 bit, they can immediately replace it with a good copy. You'll never even see it. We're talking the software and hardware combined that is more secure than on-prem storage, more reliable. It's HIPAA compliant, it's FINRA compliant, it's CJIS compliant. Instead of giving you more headaches, you're going to have fewer headaches, and you're going to do it for less with Wasabi. I just want you to try it. I just want you to try. I was talking to somebody yesterday. We all got together after Steve's event. He said, yeah, well, but nobody ever get fired for buying Amazon, just like nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. But you know what? That nowadays it's a competitive environment. That default answer isn't the right answer. You need to check out Wasabi. A lot of great companies have already moved to Wasabi. You should go to wasabi.com, use the offer code TWIT, and you can have unlimited free storage for a month. And I mean bang on that sucker. Wasabi, wasabi.com. Click the free trial link, enter the promo code TWIT. Cut your cloud storage costs by 80% without giving up anything. In fact, you're going to get quite a few things. Wasabi. This one actually, this story penetrated to the real world. My brother-in-law said, I heard that California's DMV is selling our information.
Oh.
And they are, to the tune of $50 million a year. Now, you may say, well, I don't live in California, but apparently many departments of motor vehicle are doing this.
I was going to say, if they're doing this in California, imagine what they're doing in sort of Maine or Vermont.
And this is information you're required to provide to get a license. It's not like you have a choice, including names, physical address, car registration information. The Motherboard found this out. They did a public records request. They asked the DMV for the total dollar amounts paid by commercial requesters of data for the past 6 years. And it started at 2013 at 41 million, climbed up to 52 million last year. They didn't get the names of the requesters, but some companies, Motherboard says, appeared frequently in an earlier investigation that looked at DMVs across the country. They include LexisNexis, Experian, the credit reporting agency, and private investigators.
Well, they're at the forefront.
So I am on the DMV website right now.
Yeah.
On a page titled "How Information is Protected or Disclosed," and the opening line is, "When the DMV collects personal information from you, state law, Civil Code Section 1798.17, requires the DMV to notify you about the principal purposes for which the information is to be used and any known or foreseeable disclosures which may be made of information collected where the disclosure of such information to a government entity is necessary."
Government entities.
Exactly.
They don't mention third parties, commercial parties.
Yeah, and it's
California's
that's a whole
public
lot of latitude.
Yeah. California's public information officer said the sale of this data furthers objectives related to highway and public safety.
In other words, we get money from it.
Including availability of insurance, risk assessment. That's fine. I mean, of course, insurance companies probably should get this information, right? Vehicle safety recalls. Okay, Ford, if they want to recall a Ford vehicle, should be able to go to the DMV, says who owns this vehicle. Although you'd think Ford might know that.
They might have the records for that already.
Traffic studies, emissions research. Oh, and then he throws in at the end background checks. And for pre- and existing employment purposes. The DMV takes its obligation to protect personal information very seriously.
The minute you hear somebody, I take this very seriously.
This is my favorite phrase. It's only released pursuant to legislative direction. That's kind of the equivalent
that
of...
sounds like passing the buck a little bit.
I didn't do it.
Yeah.
They told us to do it.
I'm
sure
it's
it's part
only
of the
obeying orders.
It's part of the budget.
It's probably part of the budget.
I mean, the only way to fix this is a referendum.
Multiple other DMVs around the U.S. previously confirmed to Motherboard they have cut off data access for some commercial requesters after they abused the data.
That's a really clever quote because what they're effectively saying is if you don't like it, take it up with your legislator.
Yeah.
It's not us.
Yeah.
Tell the assembly.
But you see, we've had this before with with the mobile phone companies selling off location data, again, primarily to private investigators. They did this. The press caught them at it. They said, well, we'll think very carefully about not doing that again by this certain date. They checked again 6 months later. They're still doing it. And the FCC is just going, well, it's not really our issue, and it does make them a lot of money. So
It's
you
actually
keep quiet about it.
Completely illegal in California because of DPPA, the Drivers Privacy Protection Act. That happened in 1994. I don't know if you remember this. I do vividly.
Yeah.
Starlet, Rebecca Schaefer, a stalker hired a private investigator to get her home address. He got it from the DMV. The stalker killed Schaefer, and this act was passed to prevent that from ever happening again.
Yeah, he killed her 5 years earlier. It took 5 years for them to craft legislation to address
Oh,
this.
so he killed her in late 80s.
He killed her in 1989.
Jeez. Oh, man.
And it took 5 years for people to finally be like, oh, maybe you shouldn't be able to just get randos shouldn't be able to get
And it took
a
less than a
address.
few years for the DMV to ignore that law because I guess there were enough loopholes that they were able to do so. Anyway, something to be aware of.
Data is lucrative.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, wasn't it Samsung saying that if you want to buy a TV that doesn't harvest your data in the future, you're going to have to pay more for it?
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah, we make money on this. You want to buy a
the last
TV?
CES I had to go to, the thing that had me just reeling the whole way through and on the way home is I kept going to all the different smart kitchens and I'd have my interviews and my demos, and then I would ask, so what is your data privacy policy? Do you disclose the data that you're collecting from the smart fridges and the smart ovens? How is it being stored? How is it being sold? Do I as a user have the option to edit data? And consistently the answer from vendors was, no, you never get to see what we're collecting. You have no say in this. We're not going to even tell you how it's stored or what the security protocols are for it or who we're selling this data to. And I remain sort of astonished that this is bog standard with doing business, as opposed to there being a level of transparency saying, the good news is you have a smart refrigerator that tells you when to buy milk. That smart refrigerator is also logging how often you drink milk. It's going to collate you in a database of other milk drinkers in the U.S. We're going to bundle that up. We're going to sell it to the National Dairy Board. We're going to sell it to Borden. We're going to sell it to...
And I have limited concern when it's anonymized. You know, like if it's truly anonymized and that data is being used locally for me to have something
traffic control or things like that,
or to know, or to just know what know what the flow of milk is in a certain area. If it's anonymized and it's not geographically specific, I think that there are a lot of interesting things that can be derived from that. That is not damaging me in any real way. But I do think that the idea that you can build a map of somebody based on all of the things. The hard part, we got into this discussion, my security concerns about people messing with my phone. I don't even take my iPhones to Apple to fix. I don't know if I said that on the show, but I've never actually taken, if my phone breaks, I just buy a new phone. I'm not gonna give it to anybody.
Right.
And the reason
how
is
do you destroy it though in a way that nobody can get the data off of the?
Oh, it's still sitting in my house. I got a bunch of data.
By the way, it's a huge concern. I mean,
I did an article on this based on a DEF CON talk. It is surprisingly hard to destroy all the data in an unreadable, because their premise was, if you're running a data center and a three-letter agency knocks down the door, is it possible to destroy that data really quickly? And even using thermite and various other things, it really isn't. If you've got a phone that you don't want anyone looking at again, you take the memory chips out. And this is their advice: you beat them to death with a hammer, and then you deposit them in various different bins in the
Mr.
locale,
Robot,
so no one's got them all.
We put it in the microwave. Is that good enough?
No.
And drilled holes in it.
Yeah, I knew an agency that drills holes, hits them with a hammer, applies high heat, and then keeps them in the cellar.
Yeah.
Like that's they don't actually leave. They're mostly inert. And But so the thing that my argument is that your phone is probably the most powerful and dangerous thing that you carry around, and letting people randomly get a hold of it. And so in the same way, because people, once they see your phone, once someone actually has all the data in the phone, they can not only look at what you did in the past, but they can start modeling what you're going to do in the future, and that becomes a very complicated process.
I love our audience. In the chat room, Boz says, well, it's very simple. You put them in a furnace, bring it to the eutectic point, and then dispose of the slag.
Yeah, there you go.
Of course.
Simple.
All of our furnaces do
Yes,
that.
just bring it to the eutectic point and dispose of the slag.
But I have a lot of, a variety of TVs that will connect to the internet, and none of them are allowed to connect to the internet. Yep. None of them, my Apple TV connects to the internet, and that is the one point of access to the outside world when it comes to entertainment. Mostly because I trust Apple more than everyone else. And I don't think that they're perfect, but I trust them more than I trust everybody else as far as my data.
So Tim Berners-Lee, creator of the World Wide Web, I feel like Tim wants the world to be a better place. But Tim is having a little bit of trouble, I think, figuring out how to do it. For a while, didn't he have a new company that had something to do with control your own data? I don't know what's happened to that. Now he's unveiled a global plan to save the web. That's the headline in The Guardian.
Yeah.
And picked a horrible microphone. Hey, you look at that headset mic?
I don't blame him for the microphone. He didn't pick
the
it.
microphone.
Whoever handed it to him, you're fired.
The contract for the web requires endorsing governments, companies, and individuals to make concrete commitments to protect the web from abuse, which is not the most concrete term, and ensure it benefits humanity, which is even less concrete.
You see, I love Tim
you do a Command F and there's no enforcement anywhere in the story, so anyone can sign a contract for anything.
150 organizations have signed this: Microsoft, Twitter, Google, and Facebook.
Because it was easy.
Because why not?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, because if you read through it, it's so full of loopholes. You could drive trucks through them.
The funniest thing is Amazon has not signed it, which really makes you wonder, what are they planning? How bad? Or maybe Jeff said, I don't have time for
I think
that.
he just looked at it and this is stupid.
This is stupid.
Yeah, no, I have to say, about once a month, I'll come across something on the web and it just makes me think, do you think Tim Berners-Lee saw this, he'd just sit in a darkened room for a while and just go, "What have I done?"
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I'll sign it. And everybody should sign it.
Well, yeah,
I don't think Apple
everybody-
signed it either.
signing it
No.
and enforcing it, and
Well, there's this is not.
yeah. So it's a nice PR-friendly exercise, and everyone feels happy afterwards.
But I don't feel like Tim is a PR-focused
No,
fellow.
not
I
at
think
all.
he's genuine.
I'm sure
in
he's
his
genuinely
desire.
serious, and he would love companies to take this up and fight for it. But I think, as we've seen with the case of Apple, Google, Facebook, any technology company, if it comes to making, fighting for rights like this or making a profit, then not only will they choose profit, naturally they're legally obliged to.
Yes.
So, it's...
Any publicly held company, the officers of those company are sworn to uphold shareholder value.
Right.
Yeah. And I know Mark Benioff is making a big move against this and the rest of it, but and that's cute. But it's until you fundamentally change the system, I don't see that changing.
It's a lot of posturing because you can feel good about signing it, and then you go to some event where there's always that loop of video that plays at the beginning of an event where you hear the really uplifting music, and then there's a child holding a tablet while the music swells, and there's some vagary about distributing opportunities and making the world a better place. And
then they never actually show you the child making the tablet in the sweatshop with the burning solvent fumes around them. But it's just.
But they'll be like, and some CEO will come out and be like, and we're so committed to making sure that we're not part of the problem. We've signed this contract, and that'll be the end of it. They won't. There's not going to be any action that comes from this.
So Microsoft has announced what the next update to Windows will be. In the past they've had a year and a month. So we had 1903, which was supposedly released in March of 2019. Actually, it was May, but close enough. Then we just got 1909. Again, released in October, but it was supposed to be September. So the problem is that this first release of the year 2020 is going to be called Microsoft Windows 10 2003.
Yeah.
And that's a problem, especially since there's already a Windows Server 2003. But so it's a problem. So Microsoft's they fixed it. You'll be glad to hear. They're going to call it 2004.
Oh, good. That's not confusing at all.
We were lobbying for something like 20H1, which is its code name. But no, they wouldn't go with that one. So
well, they're still sort of good. When they announced they were going straight to Windows 10, it was like, why was that? And a reader came back with, well, because 789, and it was like,
they didn't really say that, did they?
No, this was a
That's
reader
good,
on
though.
one of our
When I
forums,
was at
straight out of the
InfoWorld, one
yearbook.
of the April Fool's stories that we ran one year was Microsoft just announced they're skipping Windows 9 because they're so embarrassed by Windows. But that was
That might have been true.
and then they did that.
Yeah, I was gonna
and
say
we were
that.
That might have been actually accurate. We are coming up against a hard deadline for Windows 7. They're not going to support it after
Nope.
January 14th.
well, unless you pay them a large amount of money, but yeah.
But you know what I'm reading in
There's
a lot of
couple
places?
wiggle rooms with
Well,
how-
that's what I'm
Well, you can actually apply for an extra year. If you're an enterprise customer, you can apply for an extra year.
But it costs you.
No, this is free of charge, apparently. But only for 1 year.
And then the next year, that
And then
does
the next
cost
year,
you.
it's going to cost you an arm, leg, and your firstborn.
Yeah.
So there seems to be a loophole, and Paul and Mary Jo and I have been kind of speculating about this on Windows Weekly for some time. We keep hearing reports that, remember when Microsoft came out with Windows 10, you could, for the first year, just install it on top of 7, and it would activate, and it'd be fine. Seems like it still works. And there was a post on Reddit the other day by a Microsoftie. He says, I work in the Windows team, and Microsoft doesn't want to talk about it. But Terry
really?
Myerson, who runs Windows, was actually more interested in upgrade numbers than revenue, since they've really given up on revenue from Windows.
Yeah.
So he'd much more rather have to be able to say 90% of our users are now on Windows 10. So
Interesting. I've got an old Windows 8 machine knocking around. I could give that a shot.
So the story goes, if you go to the Microsoft site, download the Windows Media Creation tool with Windows 10, pretty soon you'll be able to get the 2004 edition, and install it on top of Windows 7. No serial number needed. It will install and activate. And at that point, of course, you have an entitlement, and then you could wipe the drive if you wanted. It wouldn't matter. You can install Windows 10 whenever you want. So I just mentioned that in passing. Remember, if you do it, it's not my fault. If it fails or it doesn't activate, and you say, "But Leo, I want my
that should
Windows
be
7."
like you said. They don't.
What do they care?
Their their revenue goes into 3 buckets. They have one bucket that's essentially the Azure and cloud. They have one called Productivity. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but that's where they're putting Office 365. Now, Microsoft 365 really is a subscription service. And the last bucket is more personal computing, which is where their revenue from OEMs, from Surface, from Bing, bizarrely enough, and from
That's quaint.
and from Windows. Actually, Bing is like a $5 billion a year business.
Really?
Yes, they
Oh, I
actually
stand corrected. Right.
they make a lot of money, and they've had, I think, close to 19 quarters of consecutive revenue growth.
Do they still roll Xbox revenue into Bing though? They used to do that.
They have that split
Okay.
out. I actually have a spreadsheet where I keep track of this stuff.
You pay attention to this
Yeah.
stuff.
But what's notable is that typically more personal computing was the big revenue driver for Microsoft every quarter. And now the Azure division is making as much money as more personal computing does. And it shows that Microsoft's been really successful in shifting its in shifting its business focus away from the end user and more towards distributed cloud services.
It's all
versus
about
process
Azure.
services.
All about Azure,
And
baby.
when I was at Ignite a few weeks ago and we were at the keynote, Satya Nadella did not mention Windows once in that keynote.
Isn't that amazing?
Not once.
What a
And,
change.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they're
over the
putting
course
the
of
Linux
5 years.
kernel in
Yeah.
in Windows 10.
Yeah. So at
crazy.
this point, like you said, I wholly buy into the idea that they're more about
Terry left
the conversion stat than they are about revenue.
To be
because
clear,
it's
Terry
not
left a year ago,
generator.
but I think that this was a policy, and they just either they forgot and just haven't changed it, or I don't know. It's the Terry Myerson Memorial Project. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so it's worth a try if you're worried. I know a lot of people just wish they could stay with Windows 7, but that seems to be ill-advised.
All these worms and everything else.
Yeah.
It's worth upgrading.
Yeah, I mean,
moving forward.
Ten's not
I will
bad.
always love DOS 5, but I can't continue to use that. And,
I do miss DOS 5.
When I
DOS, it was the
talk
best
to
of the
people at
DOSes.
Ignite, the biggest reason people don't upgrade is they're working for school systems or they're working for small municipal governments, and their IT budgets aren't there. And that is something that I wish more tech companies, because they aggressively court these customers once and then expect them to act like corporate customers who have a big IT budget, and that's not going to be the case if you're funded off of taxpayer money.
Well, and a lot of times they had a consultant come in, install everything,
And
and
then
they're no longer there. They don't
See ya.
they don't have the technical wherewithal to do
There's
the
also
upgrade.
a lot of
without-
medical gear, like X-ray machines, that are built on XP and can't be updated.
Yeah.
the British nuclear deterrent is
Why
Which
they're
is
connected to the
terrifying
internet
for
is another
security
question.
threats, yeah.
Maybe that would be one you'd want to air
We,
gap.
we had
I
a
mean-
motion control camera that from the that we used to use at ILM that literally you still use a 3.5 inch disc
Floppy.
floppy.
bless.
And there was like one floppy, and it was like it had all these dark fingerprints all over it. And you just move it because you would
Last
you'd be
floppy.
calculating the movement in Maya, and then you'd export out that date. You'd push it and export the data, and then you put it on this little and then you go ahead and put it into the motion control.
But yeah, I mean, the British nuclear defense, the Trident submarine fleet, runs on a version of Windows XP, which they're still having to pay Microsoft for support for.
Because there's no choice.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an industrial control system at this point. So
Don't our nukes run on like Fortran or something like that? I mean, I think it's like there's something way back
the,
then.
the big question
Which
is if
in
they
some-
even work in the first place.
Right,
which,
right.
It's...
We have according to Kieran McCarthy, again at the Reg,
Oh, yeah.
we have run out of IP addresses. I know, it sounds like a false alarm. We mentioned this 4 years ago.
We were arguing about this in the office before this article was written. It was just like, well, hang on. We did that one before, didn't we? It's like, 2017, 2015, and 2004. But this time, they swear...
This time, we've really,
they
this
are
is from
out of
RIPE,
blocks.
the European Regional Internet Registry. They announced on Monday, we have made our final stroke 22 IPv4 allocation from the last remaining addresses in our pool. Now, there are other pools. Stanford has like a /8. I mean, there's the IP.
Oh, no, there is a grey market in IPv4
Yeah.
addresses, and there will be a salvage market in companies that go bust and getting hold of their address stacks and selling them on. But you got to say, we shouldn't be in this situation.
We should be in IPv6.
We should be in IPv6. Unfortunately, certain design decisions with IPv6 were made regarding compatibility, which have really queered the market to them. So it just... that we're still at this situation is incredibly frustrating. But apparently, its time has come, and if you want to buy one now, got to go on the grey market.
Wow.
End of an era, right?
Yeah, I guess. Maybe not the end. Is it the end?
they're going to hang on.
Is this more like the Elton John farewell tour? I mean, it could go on for years.
No, I mean, they're going to hang around like a fart in a spacesuit. But I mean, they're still going to be there. But they should be replaced as soon as is humanly possible. But there's no pressing economic reason for many companies to do so.
So I was in Dubai a couple of weeks ago, and it's amazing how much money they spend on frivolity. The Dubai police force says they're going to add the Cybertruck to their police vehicles. By the way, they have.
It does look like it. It
looks good.
It looks great for a police car.
They have.
wonder
And I
how
saw
many
when I was there.
sell.
They have Ferraris. They have Mercedes.
Yeah, no, they have
all
Lambos.
sorts of
It's
beautiful
got to be
cars.
fun being a traffic cop over
They
there.
have Bugatti Veyrons. They have Ferrari FFs.
You need those to catch up with some of the folks that might be speeding.
Oh yeah. But I have to say, I looked at the Cybertruck and it.
You don't want to see this coming down on dark alley, though. That's scary.
I mean, but it
Although,
is
if you have a heavy ball bearing, you just throw it at the window and you'd be all right.
Oh no, they announced the reason for that. Did you hear this?
That's BS.
Yeah, it's utter BS. But
They said it's because the sledgehammer weakened it.
yeah,
Except they didn't hit the back door
It
with
caused
it.
an invisible cracks in the window, which then weakened it. It was
But what
just
about the
like-
back window?
Yeah,
They didn't sledgehammer that door.
But you see, I looked at that car. You look at the design of it, and I just thought that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. That's
cut yourself on
almost designed to kill pedestrians if you hit them.
Yeah.
You know? And also the rigid shell. For
Featured
the last
To be
20
fair,
Yeah.
a swoopy-doopy design of the Volvo is not less likely to kill a pedestrian if you hit him.
I mean, the thing is, Volvos and other cars, over the last quarter of a century, we're building cars with crumple zones because they protect both the pedestrians and the drivers.
This was
building
slice
a
your head off.
hard rigid shell. Yeah. Now, I'm sure they've loaded up the inside with airbags so the driver's safe, but anything you hit is going to get absolutely creamed.
I don't know what to say.
That said, it does.
I'd buy one if I could.
I was going to say, part of me looked at it and was like, God,
I still want one.
it's the Hummer of the 21st century, and
Except it's electric, so it's
exactly.
good for the
It's not
world.
8 miles to the gallon.
yeah, but it's still. It just screams, I'm concerned about the size of my genitalia. It just, it's.
I'm not concerned. I want it.
It's,
it'd be fun.
I really feel like we should be working more towards pedestrian safety or bike safety or something along these lines. And I'd like to see a tech company actually addressing that as opposed to, look, it's a car that's been made out of polygons.
I think we get cars out of cities, and then it'd be much simpler.
I agree.
Yeah.
No more cars in cities.
Yeah.
Finally, Black Friday, day before yesterday. Adobe keeps track of all this stuff. It is a record Black Friday, a new high,
7.4 billion.
7.4 billion online. This is not brick and mortar.
I bought some eggs.
Online? You bought eggs online?
No. I went and bought eggs.
Well, yeah,
that was my entire Friday
Lisa
Black
and
Friday
I
experience.
got in our all-electric Chevy Bolt, drove over to the outlet mall, circled once. There were no parking spaces. Came home. That was it. It was
Yeah,
fun.
exactly.
I said, "What did we think? What were we thinking?"
You see, I'm buying a new laptop at the moment. I thought, oh, great. Black Friday, I've got the weekend clear. Let me have a look through. It's junk. I mean, they're doing Black Friday models, which are basically let's clear out the old components, stick a lower price tag on it, and call it a sale.
It's like Prime Day or the Nordstrom sale, which is another thing that
But it
drops
works.
in July. And those are both meant to pump up sales numbers. And
Yeah.
they do it with merchandise that no one would buy at any other time of the year if it weren't for
One-
the fact that it's deeply on sale.
$1.2 billion more spent online on Friday than the year before.
Yeah.
Significant growth. Interestingly, 2.9 billion of that 7.4 was on smartphones, and that's growing at an even faster rate than computers.
Instagram is a great shopping app.
Oh man, that's
Yeah.
I
I mean,
actually
it
that's
is-
why
it
I
is-
killed Instagram.
It is phenomenal with how easy it is for people to buy things. Just
and
swipe
it's
up.
very
like-
effective.
Yeah.
And with
I
Apple
wouldn't be
Pay and
surprised.
these all these new
Yeah.
technologies,
It's
you don't have to even
frictionless.
enter any numbers or anything, and just go, yeah, that's me. No, that's. Although I found an interesting thing: if you only follow one person on Instagram, you don't get ads.
Really?
I don't know why.
It's interesting. I might have to set up an Instagram account, try that out.
I get
I
no
refuse
ads
to do it at the
because
moment.
I have an account, but I don't. It's not public, and I only
Yeah.
follow my wife because that's where she puts all her pictures. So I have to, and I've never seen an ad. So I feel like that's the safe way to use Instagram. The popular products on Friday: Toys on the theme of Frozen 2. You will know this, Lisa Schmeiser.
Yep.
Will you tell me what an LOL surprise is?
Oh, God.
Is that one of those unboxing?
I don't know the provenance of the brand. They're being cross-promoted pretty heavily on Amazon Prime as well. And they're these
collectibles.
Yeah, and
they're little dollies.
Like with enormous heads and enormous eyes.
Last time I showed the video,
like the
we got taken down.
And the Powerpuff Girls had some sort of unholy genetic mashup, and this is what
But then you said you got a young girl, so Frozen 2 has got to be high on the...
Oh, yeah. Let it go.
Kieran's got 2 daughters, and it was just
No, it's all anyone's talking about.
He was
Paw Patrol was a big seller. You know what Paw Patrol is?
Yeah, I know what
she
Paw
knows
Patrol
all this stuff.
Well, I was going to say my
You've been
daughter's
under
9, but her cohort has younger brothers and sisters, and so you sort of...
Oh, these aren't for 9-year-olds. These are for younger.
Yeah,
even.
Paw Patrol is for little kids. I've been told.
I thought little kids were 9. But
No, they're almost tweens. I have been informed. So,
Mom, I just want you to know I'm almost a tween.
No, she's into Lego. So,
good.
We had
much better.
So we've
bad news for you if you step
best-selling
on a knife,
video games. Clearly, these are
pain.
At her birthday party in October, one of the things we had the kids do was the Lego Walk of Fire, where we wanted to.
Where
we had them walk across a carpet stream with Legos and hand out prizes at the end.
That's a good idea.
I
do
like
not grimace.
Yeah.
So. What is worse, a small brick or a big brick? I think
small.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they get embedded in your foot, whereas the big ones, like for whatever reason, because there's a greater surface area, it's less pressure, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the secret of the Indian yogis in a nutshell, right there. Best-selling games: FIFA 20, the soccer game; Madden 20, the football game; and a Nintendo Switch. I'm not surprised. Switch was a big
Switch
selling.
is a good gaming platform.
Best-selling electronics: Apple laptops, AirPods. Oh, Apple! In fact, AirPods Pro sales
doubled.
Yeah. They actually have doubled their order according to the supply chain. And Samsung TVs.
They make good ones, but yeah.
Yeah. This is Adobe Analytics. Well, how did Adobe get into this business? That's kind of odd.
It's still no Singles Day.
Singles Day is still the biggest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get ready for this. Alibaba
30
alone,
billion or something?
$38 billion. Wow. That was earlier this year.
It's interesting how different customers do their sales with Singles Day. You know, it's just like, hi, you're single today. You must be so depressed by this. You must go out and buy stuff immediately. It's just...
Sales at Target down 12%. JCPenney down 14%. I think they're both out of business. I may be wrong.
I gotta say,
I don't know where you'd find one of those.
Target?
And yeah, aren't they gone?
No, there's one in the
No,
middle.
it's Kmart that's gone.
Kmart's gone.
I can't
Kmart's
use those.
gone.
Well, I guess
Target
having,
just
having ducked
redid
into
a
a
whole
Target,
new thing.
Well, they're not
having
doing
ducked
well.
into it recently though, it's just it's big, it's chaotic, it's loud.
eBay was down.
Yeah.
You know who the big winner?
I'll go to Target for Epsom salts, and that's about it.
Epsom
Yeah.
I mean, it's generally for me. Target is
Yeah.
where you go when you need something right now.
Yeah.
Like if I need to, I need that. I want, and then 90% of the time it's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're just like, oh, I should have just ordered
No,
it.
it's
and it's cut down. Like what really, for me, annihilated my Target runs was Amazon starting to do same day.
yeah.
Right.
Because I'll always check Amazon and go, am I going to get it today? And if I'm going to get it today, I'm not going to get out of I'm not going to leave my house.
Today.
Our family does.
So in Novato, there must be a warehouse somewhere near us.
There is a warehouse in Novato, yeah.
because
They'll
about
just drive it over.
about a third of the things I order are like, would you like them today for free? And I'm like, yes, I would have that.
Are you
today.
home? Because I'll just drive it over.
It's like hours
Wow.
that it shows up.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Interesting.
That's
No, I
really
will say
cool.
we donate to a pajama and slipper drive that our island runs every year. And what I did is I did buy on Target.com and then just drive over, pick up, and drive out. But the store was like a battle zone, like just bodies and carts flying everywhere. And I just went, picked up my things same day, picked up my things same day, walked out with my 8 pairs of slippers again, and was like, this is the way to shop.
Yeah.
I didn't buy the slippers on Black Friday, I hasten to add, but it's I can see why Target sales might be down is because if it's a profoundly unpleasant shopping experience without a perceived doorbuster bargain, why would you go?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
It's although yes, I did look. There was a comment on, I think it was Reddit yesterday. It was just like, Thursday, America, we give thanks for friendship and family.
Yeah.
Friday, we'll stab someone in the neck for a $10 toaster. You know,
No,
it's
like
just like
we do the opt out thing and go to a park that day usually. But
yeah.
that said, I don't begrudge. I understand in some families Black Friday is like, woo, it's our tradition. We go out.
Well, I mean, I saw some footage. It was on Reddit, so I'm not sure how accurate it was, but it was a Canadian Black Friday. and they open the door, and the people are lining up. The next person goes, "After you."
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah.
Did
And
now
don't
it is
forget tomorrow is Cyber Monday, so that's
Just
another
begun.
round of traffic boosting sales.
we've only
You see,
just
they've
begun.
And then
started
Giving
doing-
Tuesday comes after that, and then there's a
Yeah.
whole bunch more made up shopping milestones, like the last free shipping day and things like that.
But
It
this
is-
year they've started to do Black Friday in the UK,
Oh wow!
and people are just like, "What the hell is this? We don't have Thanksgiving, for goodness' sake!
Yeah.
You're just trying to hawk us cheap tat in the hope that we'll buy it." And
And
like
it's
the
working.
salivating animals we are, we will.
Does hawking us cheap tat have anything to do with sleeve ink, or is that another kind of tat?
Sleeving.
Never
Tat
mind.
is another word for knickknackery or
Yeah.
Ah.
cheap gimcrackery.
So, for example, we in the Reg we describe Amazon as an online as a cloud storage, a cloud computing company with an online tat suit, attached. But it's
Does
I like Tatsuk. That's a
it's
very
December 1st. Did
evocative-
you all open your first advent calendar door?
Yes.
What was yours? What did you get?
So we actually have two. We have the Lego Star Wars Advent Calendar.
Oh,
for the kids.
nice.
okay.
Oh, nice.
And what we do is we have one of those big German wooden Advent calendars with the little drawers that you
Oh,
pull
those
out.
are cute.
And
Yeah,
we
Lisa
do,
does that. She puts a $1 bill in each one or something.
Wow, Lisa is much more generous than I am because we just do like a different holiday activity every day.
Probably smarter.
You better hope your kids don't listen to this show.
I'm ordering
Why can't we have
the right now. It's a little late, but I'll just double up on it. The hot sauce advent calendar that every 25 days of tiny little hot sauces.
Well, I've got to say, what with Brexit and the British election campaign, I'm thinking about making my own, and every little door you open has excrement in it. But no,
It's disgusting.
No, our homemade Advent calendar will have one night will be like we watch Elf, another night
Oh,
will be
that's
we
cute.
make Christmas cookies, another night is we go to
Oh.
a fancy neighborhood and walk around with the
Okay.
lights. And
Yeah.
So
you're a nice person.
yeah, I basically have like a spreadsheet where I just cut out things and stick them in the doors.
Oh, that's cute.
although you could subvert that. Oh, it's your Advent. Go and clean your room, right? This is why I'm not a parent.
You've mouthed off me one too many times this year, Missy. This is where
That's Lisa Schmeiser. She's a great mama, editor at IT Pro Today. She's at L Schmeiser on the Twitter. And it's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you
making
for having
your way through the atmospheric river to be here with us today. Same for you, Alex Lindsey from Nevada. He is on the Twitter as well, Alex Lindsey with an A, AlexLindsay. Anything exciting coming up in your life?
I am going to be producing some videos in the next week or two. I'm just finishing up
Nice.
a little home studio to shoot them, and so mostly technical stuff. And then again next week we're going to try to figure out what this aircraft part is that I have sitting on my desk. It's very
Cool.
exciting.
That's exciting. You can put that on Twitter.
I found that the Twitter is very useful for these
Lazy
things.
Twitter.
It's been sitting around on my desk for maybe 15 years, maybe 20 years, and I don't know what it is. I make things up about it,
There's
but
a
I don't
great
know.
Reddit forum. What is this thing? They will generally sort it out within.
They're
6
amazing.
hours.
Yeah,
They are just
There's nothing
insanely
Reddit
good.
can't do.
I'm going to start on Twitter. If Twitter fails, then I'm
Okay,
going to put it on.
yeah,
I'm put on Reddit.
Ian Thompson, your holiday plans? Are you?
Well, my holidays now. What for Christmas? I'm taking the full British Christmas Eve to New Year's Day.
Nice.
It's like getting the whole spread because I swear there is nothing worse when I first came over here and having to get up on Boxing Day morning at 7 a.m. and go into work, and it was just I loathe this. It's just wrong. Boxing Day is for recovering with a hangover, eating bits of turkey that you didn't meet before. Yeah, it's the concept that you could work the day after Christmas is just horrifying to me.
Follow him on the Twitter, IAINTHOMSON.
My parents are bastards. We've had words about this.
Scottish person. And of course, he's on the register.co.uk. We are doing our annual holiday show on Thursday, our Twit holiday show. We pre-recorded so that we don't have to be here on the holiday. I think it's going to run the day after Christmas. I think it's is it Boxing Day that it runs? Or is it Christmas Eve that it runs? I can't remember. It's close to Christmas. Christmas is Wednesday? Oh, well, never mind. Is it the Wednesday? Is it the Sunday before or the Sunday after?
The Sunday before Christmas.
Okay.
It's the 22nd, I believe.
22nd. And it's going to be, we like to bring in different hosts. We've done different groups in the past. This time, Stacey Higginbotham, Mary Jo Foley, and
Lori Gill.
So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Good
and
one.
each of them gets their own special drink and hot sauce.
Oh, wow.
Should be a lot of fun. That
like
we'll be
drinking
taping that.
hot
What time on
sauce.
Thursday, Karsten?
That will be 2 p.m. on Thursday, 2 p.m. Pacific,
5 p.m.
5
Eastern.
p.m. Eastern.
And we'll stream it
do
live.
UTC.
Yes, I
It
don't
was the
either.
night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a thing was stirring, not even a clicking mouse.
Not even a clicking. We do Twit every Sunday afternoon, around about 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern, 22:30 UTC. You can watch us do it live if you want to get all the, the pre and post show stuff. That's at twit.tv/live. Actually, you can watch or listen. We have both kinds of streams. We also have a wonderful chat room that's always on, even on the holidays. That's at irc.twit.tv. So if you're watching live, join them in there. After the fact, you can download any show we do at our website, twit.tv, or best thing to do, subscribe in your favorite podcast application so that you get it the minute it's available. If you are an asynchronous listener, if you don't watch and listen live, I do invite you to join our forums where everybody is talking about the show after the fact. It's at twit.community online, and you're all welcome. We'd love to have you. I will see you on Tuesday with iOS Today, Mac Break Weekly, and Security Now. Until then, another Twit is in the can.
This is
Bye-bye.
amazing.